Welcome! I am Dr. Julian from Quality Attempted. Picture class. It's like master class, but not nearly as good. But it's free, because it's the Quality Attempted version. But not really. We're going to do... Van away. I'm just like waiting for someone to laugh, because some people might not even know who Vanna White is. We're gonna do decades in film. I thought of an interesting way to do like a online show. Online? How old am I? A YouTube show on the internet. And we're gonna go decade by decade through film. Obviously starting in the 1980s with Blowout, which is my current favorite film. It had dethroned Blade Runner from... Yeah, that's... No, there's no more to that sentence. It had dethroned Blade Runner. There was a specific shot in that movie that made me laugh at a very tense moment, and I was like, oh, okay. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about this movie to launch us into this new program.
It began with a sound that no one was ever supposed to hear.
So it is on Pluto and Tubi for free. It is also on Prime Video, or Amazon Prime Video, whatever it's called. I don't know if the quality is better, because a lot of times you'd assume like they'd get a better master of it. I don't know if it's a public domain one. No, it's not public domain. We are... Blowout is a film about making a film. Brian De Palma is a huge fan of movies. He likes filmmakers, and he likes to show the process that he goes through when he makes a film. So this is a very, very, very personal film for him. He was very obsessed with the John F. Kennedy assassination, and he had that as a recurring theme in his movies, and this movie's kind of the ultimate obsession, because a movie sound designer, audio engineer, whatever his official title is, who is supposed to just record sounds for a crappy horror movie, accidentally records an assassination through a gunshot, but everyone thinks it's a blowout because that happens in the movie. So I'm going to give a spoiler alert. This film came out in 1981. This is the Criterion Collection, which automatically, you could tell, would draw my eye to it. Visually, I want to know about this movie, but it tells you so much more than the original poster, which is John Travolta. You know, it's like a cutoff. If you're looking for this movie on Tubi or Apple TV, if you search it, you'll see that image. I think this is a much better image. This is the one the Criterion Collection used, and a lot of times they'll use covers like this. They also did one for Thief, but I think I like that original poster better, but it also features like James Caan and a similar thing, but it's him under the Chicago Bridge. But it's just a photo, you know, it's interesting. This is not representative of the time period it came out, which if you've seen Brian De Palma other posters, Body Double, and Dressed to Kill, these are the original posters. These three films are a exploitation trilogy, and they also tell the story of film through the actual film, what you see on camera, a sound and director's point of view in Blowout, and then in Body Double you see it from an actor's point of view. I have a very large theory about that. I'm hoping to get it more organized and express it better, but that's just a sample. One of my favorite parts of this film is the fact that you see a movie being made right in front of your eyes. He's showing you how he's doing it. The sequence, which is reproduced very nicely in the booklet from the Criterion Collection, when they published the film into photos for a magazine, when John Travolta's character Jack buys the magazine, and then he cuts the film, and then he synchronizes it. He cuts these, and then basically tapes them together, tapes the photos together, so it's got like on a strip, like a film strip, and then he synchronizes it with the sound, so you see technically how a film is made, like an old school way versus how everything would be digitally scanned, computer, non-linear editing. They're doing, you know, old school cuts and stuff like that.
He recorded a murder they say never happened.
It has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Those are numbers, if that matters to you. Written and directed by Brian De Palma. He also did Scarface, The Untouchables, Body Double, Dressed to Kill, Phantom of the Paradise, Mission Impossible, Snake Eyes. I'm not going to go through his whole filmography, but I probably could. He is currently my favorite director. Blowout. Hopefully, if you've watched this film, you can at least agree it is very entertaining and very beautifully shot. What do you think? Is this a good movie or bad movie? What do you think? Tell me in the comments below. Are there any movies you're hoping that you'd like to see in this decade thing I'm doing? I have kind of a list, but the idea is to try to keep them all free, so feel free to drop me an email at qualityattempted@gmail.com. And you can also check us out on Instagram at qualityattempted, one word, but it's also two. What? I don't know. So give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Hello and welcome to Picture Class, episode 3. Oh. Sorry, I thought we were going to do Dial-In for Murder. Welcome to Picture Class, episode 3, Notorious. Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious. Before we get started today, I'd like to give a very big shout out to our editor, Mr. Jim Cook. Take a bow. Also, since this movie's in black and white, maybe I should be in black and white. Anyway, the movie we are talking about is Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Notorious, from 1946. It has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, 91% of the audiences agree, 8.0 on the Internet Movie Database. It is currently available for free on Tubi. The film has had a very interesting release history. I honestly don't know who owns the rights. It's rarely available for streaming, so I highly recommend that you check this movie out as soon as possible before it just disappears, and then you have to find the disc. And so some people are like, what's a disc? A Blu-ray? Oh. This movie stars Ingrid Bergman, Cary Grant, and Claude Rains. It is the second of 3 collaborations that she had with Alfred Hitchcock, the other being Spellbound, and then after that she would do Under Capricorn. With Cary Grant, this would be his second out of 4 films with the Master of Suspense. First beginning with Suspicion, continuing with Notorious, then To Catch a Thief, and then North by Northwest in 1959. And then, of course, I think this is his one and only film with Claude Rains. And Claude Rains, oof, so good in this movie. Just great. Ingrid Bergman and Claude Rains are in the same film, Casablanca, a few years prior. So when I initially was just looking up movies on Amazon based their algorithm years and years ago, this movie kept popping up with Ingrid Bergman and the teacup. And she's just kind of looking. I'm like, that's kind of a cool cover. I wonder what this movie's about. The movie's title... Also, if this seems familiar, it was a movie in 2009 about the rapper, but this has no relation to that. So that was not a remake. Obviously, this movie was remade in 2000 as Mission Impossible 2. Yes, watch the movie. Same exact plot. I mean, not so much motorcycle action, and Cary Grant's not jumping off of cliffs and doing stuff and throwing sunglasses and they're exploding and people aren't taking their faces off every 5 seconds, but, you know, it's not even close. So we have our MacGuffin in this movie is uranium. We will get to what the MacGuffin is in just a second. Another thing I want to mention is Ben Hecht did the screenplay. Ben Hecht and Alfred Hitchcock and Ingrid Bergman were all part of a package deal that David O. Selznick sold to RKO to help raise some more money to a film that was losing money at the time. David O. Selznick, of course, did Gone with the Wind in 1939, which he won Best Picture for because he was the producer. He actually got the Oscar. I did a little test here. I found out that Edith Head did the costumes. I knew Edith Head did a lot for Paramount because I used to think she was under contract for Paramount, but she worked with Alfred Hitchcock here, and she did Ingrid Bergman's gorgeous wardrobe, and they just stand out. If you watch the film, you're like, damn, those are some nice dresses.
Notorious. 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 She was a notorious woman of many desires. He was an adventurous man of purpose. Their secret love swept them on to the brink of disaster.
She won 8 out of her 35 nominations, 8 Oscars, so she is the most awarded winner of Oscars as a woman, and if you search that in Google, Katharine Hepburn will show up. So obviously they don't really care when it comes to anything but the big five. A lot of times people don't even acknowledge them. This has the classic Hitchcock tropes, including the overbearing mother. Woo! She's crazy. And he has the blonde, of course. If you notice, I have a Where's Waldo tie. So if you ever looked up the Where's Waldo, it's kind of like Where's Hitchcock? Hitchcock also makes appearances in this film. He makes a very late appearance in this film, depending on what region or what format you're watching it in. Somewhere between an hour and 4 minutes. He shows up at a party and he does this and he walks away. Hitchcock later would move his cameos earlier and earlier to the film because he felt his presence would distract people who would always be looking, where is he? And some of his cameos are quite clever when the movies are in very confined spaces, but he still manages to get in there, whether it's a photograph, a newspaper, or in case of Rope, a neon sign in the backdrop. Check it out. So, I have here tea, wine, and cup. What the heck does that mean? Well, we're going to learn our first term in this class. It's called a MacGuffin. A MacGuffin is a plot device that motivates the characters and advances the story, but has little other relevance to the story of itself. What the fuck does that mean? Have you seen any of the Avengers movies?
Yes.
What would you call the Infinity Stones? MacGuffins. Another perfect example, or maybe the best example I could give to anyone, is the 2000 movie Snatch. The diamond is one of the best MacGuffins ever. The diamond has nothing to do with the movie, yet it brings all these characters together. Now, the term MacGuffin, so Hitchcock says, and I quote, "It might be a Scottish name taken from the story of 2 men on a train. One says, 'What's the package up there in the baggage rack?' And the other says, 'Oh, that's a MacGuffin.' The first one asks, 'What's a MacGuffin?' Well, the other man says, 'It's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands.' The first man says, 'But there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands.' And the other answers, 'Well, then that's it. There is no MacGuffin.' So you see, there's no MacGuffin at all. So what's the point of it? Well, it's an object or an idea that drives the movie forward. This movie is a film noir, which a lot of people will say is a genre, other people will say is a style. I'm in the camp that it's a style because what the hell is a film noir? It literally means, noir means black in French film, so it's a black film, meaning dark, and it was a term coined by a French critic who noticed that a lot of these movies were all kind of dark and had very similar themes, and he dubbed it film noir. Most of the people making the films didn't think they were making film noir, and a lot of the film noirs are B pictures. They were the cheaper films that shown in front of the A pictures. So the A pictures were generally in color with a little more famous actors, and the B picture would show up first, and it would be gritty, thrillers that you could shoot, and the lighting a lot of times was just to hide the fact that they didn't have any money. So as a result, they kind of stumbled into something awesome. Film noir, the classic period tends to be started, their theory is 1941 with The Maltese Falcon, another MacGuffin, up to 1958's Touch of Evil. There is neo-noir and noir from other countries. The reason why I say film noir is a style because of the movie The Big Lebowski. If you're scratching your head right now, what? The Big Lebowski? Noir? Yes. Watch the movie Murder, My Sweet. and right after it watch The Big Lebowski, tell me you haven't just watched a comedy film noir.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
And the other thing I have here is a rip-off / homage. If you hate the movie, it's clearly a rip-off. If you love the movie, it's clearly an homage. So Mission Impossible 2 could have been a loving homage to Notorious. Or if you really hated the movie, it just ripped off Notorious. Depends on your feelings about Mission Impossible 2. Not here to talk about that. It was also, I'm going to say homage, because I thought this was very good, very well done, in Star Wars Clone Wars Season 2 episode, I think it was the fourth one, something Senate. Padme plays the Ingrid Bergman role, and Anakin, I don't know what Anakin plays. He just plays Anakin, just jealous, angry, always jealous and angry. He's either happy or jealous and angry. But after I watched the episode and how they really were influenced and homaged Hitchcock, I was like, I liked it. I thought it was very, 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 very well done. Film noir is often noted for its voiceovers, the high contrast lighting. It's like sometimes in a city, and the crime element. It's very influenced by German Expressionism. It's very post-World War II because a lot of soldiers were coming back and women had been integrated into the workforce and they were insecure, so the rise of the femme fatale, the dangerous woman who had ulterior motives, very famous film noir trope. I have the National Film Registry on here because the movie Notorious was added because it is culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The National Film Registry was introduced in 1988 due to Martin Scorsese and Frank Capra urging Congress to preserve some of the films to prevent people like Ted Turner from colorizing them. And as another thing, it is a very big part of our American culture, so there's a lot of different films, not limited to feature films. There's also avant-garde, news clips. Check out the National Film Registry. Kind of interesting. What do I like about this film? Well, first of all, it is a spy thriller romance. Yep, spy thriller romance by Alfred Hitchcock, who's not really known for his romantic movies. One of the things that makes this film great is Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant. Cary Grant is this almost ominous, stoic guy, and you're like, what's his deal? And you see he's holding back, and Ingrid Bergman's being so vulnerable with him. And the movie starts with her father being arrested for war crimes, and then she comes out of the courtroom, and she immediately starts drinking. And we're introduced to Cary Grant like this. Just a shadow, and you see Ingrid Bergman here. She's going to be Ingrid Bergman for now. And she, Snorlax. She could be a she. She's here, and, she's talking to him. It takes us a few minutes before we even see Cary Grant. Alfred Hitchcock was also very good at introducing the big stars of the movies. And I think Cary Grant was the bigger star at this point, but this is Ingrid Bergman's movie. Another thing that's really cool is how Alfred Hitchcock really fought with the censors. If you watch old Hollywood movies, one thing you'll notice, we're going to have to use Snorlax again, Snorri, is the Hollywood kiss. They'd be like... And it always looks awful, it looks bad. I think they do it, but they do it. They do have that kiss in here.
This is a very strange love affair.
Why?
Maybe the fact that you don't love me.
When I don't love you, I'll let you know.
You haven't said anything.
Actions speak louder than words.
But there was another scene where they exchanged a lot of small kisses for about 2 to 3 minutes. And the kisses never last longer than 2 seconds. So the ratings board was like, well, they're kissing. He's like, kiss, stop, kiss, stop, kiss, stop. So he kind of just did it to piss them off, but it happens to be so much more interesting. And one of the things about the Hays Code, which was the code that would allow the movies to be released to prevent the government from editing the movies. So it was a self-imposed code in order to prevent the government from stepping in, much like the UK and some other countries actually do have that right. That you couldn't, a man always had to have one, or someone, if they're on a bed, they had to have the separate beds, which you always want to know, why were there separate beds? They couldn't talk about sex. They couldn't, they had to imply it, and they dance around it so well in this movie. One of the lines I really like is, you can add Sebastian to my list of playmates. Ingrid Bergman's and Cary Grant play like a romantic chicken. Like, do they love each other or do they not love each other? And they keep escalating as she gets deeper and deeper. So she marries Claude Rains at some point in order to help the American government get knowledge on the uranium ore. And, you know, you could see it's killing Cary Grant, but he's not showing it. He shows it to his boss, and like the actors, the emotions in this, it just shows you that sometimes holding on characters can tell you a lot more than cutting. Cut. It's one of the things that, you know, maybe I don't like as much about modern films is they don't hold on things for longer than maybe 10 seconds, or maybe it's even 5 seconds. And here you have a lot of time to just stay. When the camera's not cutting, you feel more involved. Another thing is, it's good for the actors, is the actors get to show little nuances. There's a scene I shared with when she had the key. I had the key before. I had a key. Hold on, I'm gonna get the key. I'm gonna get the key. Very fast. She has a key. So, also, Timber Tower, check it out. On podcast. Sure, you're just gonna cut this out, Jim, so, yeah. So we can just pretend like I pulled it out here, right? So another big element from this film is the key. The great shot is when she takes the key off of there, and then Claude Rains comes out. You focus on his hands, and you're like, oh shit. And then she has to switch it, and then do the thing behind the back, and then she kicks it off to the side. So the key becomes this important element. The next shot, we have the party, and we have a crane shot all the way down, and we focus on the key. Is it exorbitant? Maybe, but this is just a gorgeous shot that just shows you this key, this tiny key could just unravel everything. And very visual movie. You'll see the key has a lot of influence. And then when Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant go down to the wine cellar, you know, they break one of the bottles and then they quickly fix it, right? They quickly put another uranium ore into another bottle and they put it up. What makes this so great is two things. They get caught by Claude Rains, who finds them making out, and he's just like, ooh, you know she's in deep shit, but at the same time, he's like, I'd rather you think that than think this. So they think everything's going good. And then Claude Rains goes down to the cellar and realizes the key is missing. And then he goes up. Then the next morning, he finds the key is there. So basically, visually, we see how Claude Rains puts the pieces together. It doesn't need to be overtly said. And then he takes the key, he goes downstairs, and he's just like, okay. But then he sees some liquid in the sink because they poured out the wine bottle. Uh-oh. He goes to the wine cellar, he goes to the rack. He sees 1934, 1934, 1934, 1940. Oh, fuck. That shouldn't be there. He looks down, he sees some residue on the ground, he finds a bottle, it shows 1934. He sees the cap from the 1940 bottle has been broken. So now he has just realized what the two of them were doing down there. Now he realizes he's married to an American agent. And he goes upstairs and he's just like, fuck. Because earlier in the movie, you see his friends, the other members of this group, and one of them reacts very strongly when he sees a wine bottle. He thinks that that wine bottle is the wrong wine bottle for the guests. Due to that guy's overreacting, he is killed off screen because by the head guy, and Sebastian or Claude Rains knows, okay, if he killed that guy for overreacting, he's gonna kill me for being married to an American agent. So he tells his mother, and his mother has like this almost orgasmic reaction. She goes for a cigarette with a smile on her face after she figures that she knows she's right. And she's like, all right, we can't kill her, but we can kill her slowly. So the whole plot the point from here becomes the cup. And they start poisoning her very slowly in order to kill her, because you can't just, kill her because that would be arouse suspicion. So they're gonna kill her very slowly. And then as a result, Cary Grant's wondering why she's missing their appointments to talk about stuff, you know, what's going on. And then eventually he just shows up to the house. Shows up to the house, right? Clearly, you're like, if there's spot, they just show up to the house, but it's a movie. You have to remember it's a movie. And he goes upstairs, just goes upstairs, and he sees her. And probably the best part of this movie is he literally just goes into the house and he grabs her and then he starts walking out. The mother and Alexander Sebastian are like, what the fuck you doing? And then he's just like, well, do you want to make a scene in front of your friends? So they're slowly going down the stairs, and this is so tense. Clone Wars did this very well too. It was a little more condensed, but I was like, okay, Clone Wars. I was pretty proud. Each step they're going down, you're cutting between the mother, Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman, Claude Rains, they're going down, and you're just like, what the fuck is gonna happen? Each step he's like, it's up to you. And the mother's like, help him. And he's just so angry because clearly the woman he loves is with this other guy walking right out the front fucking door. But if he makes a scene, he's dead. And then he realizes quickly that he starts to help her. And then they take it to the car. So he's hoping to go to the hospital with them, right? Well, get in the car. Boom, Cary Grant locks the door. Claude Rains is like, no, you gotta take me with me. They're gonna kill you. And then you see one of the other guys talk to the other guys over there. There is no phone in the room. How could they called the hospital? Uh-oh. They know. He knows. They drive away, but are they really going to have a happy life? They're kind of two messed up people. Kind of a very odd relationship. It's just like constant one-upsmanship, but do they last? In the romantic sense, you want to hope they do, but they drive off. You don't follow, the camera doesn't follow them. They have the shot where he turns around and he walks right up the stairs into the house, knowingly to his death. Clone Wars also does this, so I thought that is why it was a brilliant homage. I'm kind of forgetting which side of the board I'm on now. But see the key, it's staring at it. It's a MacGuffin. So clearly the wine ore didn't have too much to do with the movie, but it drove the movie forward. So that was so much of what I liked about the movie. It clearly kind of just described the plot of it, which we can cut out, maybe not. I don't know, but this movie is just really, really beautifully made. It's probably my favorite Hitchcock. I can say that very easily. A lot of times I don't watch it for a long time, so when I try to do top 10s, it's kind of like, what have I seen recently? And unfortunately, I struggle so much with it because it depends when you watch a movie and what you're feeling at the time. So it's like favorite films. These are 10 films I can watch because I think it's ever changing. If you have the same favorite film for all time, that's really cool. I don't know. Is a problem with commitment to movies? Do I have a commitment problem? You know, is Blade Runner gonna be like, so you're watching Blood now? Or, you know, if I like Notorious better one day and then Psycho better next, do they get jealous? No, maybe they do. I don't know. Movies have a life unto their own. But that is Notorious from 1946. God, that was a lot of talking, but as you can see, I really, really like this movie. It is so beautifully shot, so beautifully made. I've said that like 3 times now. But what do you think of this movie? Comment right below. Give us a like if you like this movie. You could give a dislike. I'm not gonna stop you from making your own decisions because, you know, you do what's best for you.
Produced by Alfred Hitchcock, master of suspense. For tense dramatic impact, see Notorious. Starring Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman, and a story of danger and bold intrigue. See Notorious.
Give us a subscribe and give us a follow on Instagram, Quality Attempted. If you want to suggest a movie that's on Tubi or some other formats, qualityattempted@gmail.com. I've been Julian. I'm exhausted. You've been great. And I guess I'll see you next week where we'll cover another movie. I'm thinking of something interesting, but it might be on a different service. So we're going to see how the week goes. But thank you so much, and have a great week, everybody. Hello and welcome back to Picture Class. We are in week 2 or episode 2, whatever you want to call it. It's 2. Alright, so we are going to be talking about Charade today from 1963. It has a 7.9 on the Internet Movie Database, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, 92% for the audience, 94% for the critics. It is available on streaming and Tubi, Movie, Classic, Prime, Plex, Pluto, and Vudu. Whew. That means it's public domain because it's on all of these streaming sites. That's not actually what it means. The fact that it's public domain is why it's on all these streaming sites. What does public domain mean? Well, it means exactly as it means. Public domain. Anybody can make a film of this, or not a film, they can make a release of it. So if you wanted to screen it or put a DVD out, VHS, whatever the hell you want to do, it's public domain. Why, you might ask? Because in the opening credits there is a lack of a copyright notice, and someone must have gotten fired for Universal because basically they're no longer the sole rights owner to the film, so anyone could do it. Warner Brothers could release it if they really wanted to. I don't see why they would, but wouldn't that be an interesting version? Well, we're going to do our bonus features, and we're going to do our bonus features. But when it comes down to it, how many people are really going to buy a DVD or Blu-ray or even a 4K release of this movie? Well, the Criterion Collection thought so. That's how I first was introduced to this movie around 2009. This has Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant, George Kennedy, James Coburn, and Walter Matthau. It was made in 1963 by Stanley Donen, who also produced it. He also directed it. It's a very, very fun movie. A man is thrown off a train.
Crazy.
He is dead, and then Audrey Hepburn is his wife, finds out that he was somebody else her whole life, and now she gets involved in this whole scheme because he has money, and they all think he left it to her, but she doesn't have it. So the movie is a thriller, comedy, romance. It has all these different twists and turns. It is a very, very well made movie. It was called the best film Hitchcock never made, although it doesn't really, it doesn't, like, if you know Hitchcock films, you know he didn't shoot it. But at the same time, it has that flavor, but it also has a very James Bond flavor. Cary Grant could have been James Bond if James Bond was like 10 or 20 years earlier. As you can see in this movie, he's a little older, but Cary Grant's still going to be Cary Grant, even though one of my favorite quotes that he said was, everyone's always talking about Cary Grant, or something. He didn't even know who Cary Grant was because it was an alias to him. It wasn't who he was.
Do we know each other?
Why do you think we're going to?
I don't know. How would I know?
Because I already know an awful lot of people, and until one of them dies, I couldn't possibly meet anyone else.
There's a danger to the characters, but it's also, they're always very funny. Walter Matthau is very good in this movie. Walter Matthau was, Mr. Wilson in Dennis the Menace, the film. He was also best known for all of his collaborations with Jack Lemmon and Billy Wilder. The Fortune Cookie and... Fortune Cookie is the only one that always comes to mind. The Front. I can't even remember the other movies. They have a few movies, and Fortune Cookie is always the one that comes to mind. If you've never watched a movie outside your birth year, I've had people say, I can't watch any movies that were made before I was born. I kind of get that, but at the same time, once you cross over and know that there's movies that can entertain you that were made in a different time period, once you can get over that, then the world is yours, or in terms of cinema. So anyway, I highly recommend you give this film a watch, a spin, whatever you'd like to call it. What movies would you like to see in the future? We have covered the 1960s and the 80s, so that leaves the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, 10s, 1900s, and 1890s. Put in the comments, write me an email at qualityattempted@gmail.com. Give us a follow on Instagram at qualityattempted. Of course, quality is always attempted here. Do we always succeed? No, but we always do try. Hence the term quality attempted. Give this video a like, a share, subscribe. And I've been Julian, you've been there, and this has been Picture Class. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more great content. Oh, I hate that word, content. Me and Joe Bob Briggs, we both hate that word, content, but I only hate it because he said it first, so I'm copying it from him. It's art. It's work. It's theater. It's le cinéma. It's... Hello and welcome back to Picture Class. We are in week number 4. 1974, The Phantom of the Paradise. So this will make our 4th decade in the 1970s, just to put that out there. It came out on Halloween 1974. That is, of course, if you believe Wikipedia, but I think that's the actual date. It was directed by Brian De Palma. Yes, another De Palma movie, but it also happens to be a musical, so maybe I'll sing and I'll dance. The whole thing. Okay. So it has an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 28 critics. So that means not too many people have actually sat down and watched this movie on Rotten Tomatoes, critics-wise, or they just don't seem to give a rat's. It has an 84% according to the 10,000 audience score, so at least it's close. I don't know what the hell that means. 7.4 out of 10 on the internet movie database. Music is by Mr. Paul Williams, who you might know from Battle of the Planet of the Apes. I think that's the 5th one. The original series, the original 5. It's a very interesting franchise. It just, look it up. The world ends in the 2nd one, yet there's 3 more. Not even kidding. I'm kidding. The world ends in the 2nd one. How they make 3 more? Let me figure it out. It is only available on Amazon Prime at the moment, so I am sorry to the people who've been watching Tubi, but maybe this will show up at some point. Probably not. It's a Disney-owned product now since it is from 20th Century Fox.
20th Century Fox presents Phantom of the Paradise, a gothic horror story.
What was that?
I wanted to do a musical, and there's not too many musicals on film that I really like. I prefer musicals on stage, honestly, if I go there. I've seen Beetlejuice, I've seen Cabaret, I've seen a lot. La Cage aux Folles, but the La Cage aux Folles movie in the 1970s I really like, as well as its remake, The Birdcage, both of which are not musicals, but musicals. I don't think they're musicals. They have musical numbers, though. Maybe they are musicals, I don't know. Anyway, this movie is essentially Faust plus Phantom of the Opera. Faust plus Phantom of the Opera. And if you add those two, you get the Phantom of the Paradise. The Phantom of the Paradise that has the Faust becomes a guy named Winslow Leach, who is a aspiring artist, musician, creator, and he wants to create his sonata, and he wants to be the only person to sing it. And he happens to go to Mr. Paul Williams, who plays our lead villain, Mr. Swan, who I also was talking so much. Paul Williams also did, he was the Penguin from the Batman animated series. And he wrote The Rainbow Connection as well as a lot of other Muppet songs. So Paul Williams is pretty awesome to me. I think so. And one of my favorite quotes on the bonus features, he's like, you know you've had a drug or alcohol problem when you can misplace decades. Wow, that sounds really fun. No, just kidding. Stay in school, kids. I don't know. So the movie has this very parody-esque nature to it. So a lot of the songs are pretty funny, a lot of sexual overtones, lots of sexual overtones. And each time that they sing, for the most part, they're on a stage. So before, when I was not too into musicals, I was like, I've seen this over 10 years ago. I'm like, it makes sense. But also you have Brian De Palma's very, very flashy style. The lead female is played by Jessica Harper, who you might recognize from My Favorite Year. Yes, I'm pretty sure none of you have seen that movie. She was also in a pair of Woody Allen movies. You probably haven't seen those either, but she probably was also in Minority Report, very small role, as well as Suspiria, not the Amazon remake, but the 1977 original by Dario Argento, who shares a lot with Brian De Palma, as his comparisons to Alfred Hitchcock are very obvious. So is it a ripoff or is it an homage? You tell me.
A beautiful love story. A cinematic odyssey through the rock universe. From Greece to glitter and beyond. The story of a sound, the man who created it, the girl who sang it, the monster who stole it, and the phantom who haunts the paradise, the ultimate rock palace.
The film, the musical numbers are very funny and they're catchy. And the thing is, I can listen to the soundtrack in my car. I can listen to it walk. It's a very catchy soundtrack. I really like it. And it's just a movie of just having fun. It is a big parody of the music industry as well as fame and fortune. It's very over the top. There is a lot of really hilarious juxtapositions of shots and frames, and you just sometimes scratching your head is like, well, what is the tone of this movie? Am I supposed to take it seriously? Is it supposed to be sad? It's very fun. It's got that gothic horrorness, which it's very similar to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which came out in 1975, I believe, but the Rocky Horror Show predated this, I believe, so because it was a play or a musical that was turned into a film. So this often gets a lot of comparisons to it. Another film that I would say would be like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then Once Upon a Time in the West. Oddly, in that case, they're both directed by the same exact guy. People talk about one, other people think they should be talking about the other. People like to argue, why can't we just like both? Right? They're both good movies. He basically gets his music stolen from Paul Williams, and then he just starts putting on the show without him and giving it to artists. So it's kind of like the music industry taking musicians' music and then just giving it to whoever they want. They create the stars. You don't matter. And he kind of goes nuts when he finds out his music is being sung by the Juicy Fruits, which is the band that opens the movie with Goodbye Eddie Goodbye. Also, fun fact, Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone opens the movie as we get the Swan logo or Death Records. And he talks like this. If you don't know who Rod Serling is, he is from The Twilight Zone, and he also did a show called Night Gallery sometime in the 1970s. Paul Williams gives a very wonderful performance in this movie. He's like this ladies' man type character with this he looks pretty much like a copy of Phil Spector. That's what he's going for. And he's very evil. He's almost the devil, or he has the devil has his soul, or something like that. That's more later into the plot. But when Winslow finds out, he goes nuts and he starts trashing it, and then he runs to destroy all the records that they're about to put out because he is thrown in jail. He has his teeth ripped out, so he gets these metal teeth. And then he, while he is trying to destroy records and destroy the record press, his face gets caught in a record press. So he actually has the album that he hates so much burned into his face, and then he dons the bird-like phantom mask, and he starts terrorizing the paradise, aka the Phantom of the Paradise.
Paul Williams as Swan.
And the angels that defeated them.
I want you to stop terrorizing the paradise and rewrite your cantata.
And the Phantom.
Stop and try me up. Only you might satisfy me up.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Let me know what you think. Look for the quality attempted. We got a new logo. It's a magnifying glass. I think it's kind of clever. We're on Instagram. Join us, please. We've got about a few followers. We could do with a few more followers.
So, pretty please, with sugar on top.
Also, subscribe to us on YouTube. We need more subscribers. It helps push that algorithm along. You know, other people say that. And push this content to other people who probably will watch it for about 10 seconds and be like, no. Give us a like if you like this. Maybe a dislike if you don't. It's your choice. You do what you want. Leave a comment. What do you think of this movie? What's your favorite musical? What else would you like to see on Picture Class? QualityAttempted@gmail if you'd like to contact. What else is there to say? Welcome back to Picture Show. We're on class number 5 or week number 5. Deep cover. I thought the blanket would be a cool idea. Cover? No? Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to the nice person that made this. Thank you, Pascal. As of next month, made it into the Criterion Collection. That's not why I'm reviewing it. This movie has had a very large impact on me since I was a child. Some reason, my grandmother had this tape on VHS from Blockbuster. What the fuck is a Blockbuster? Well, Blockbuster was a video store that you went to and you gave them this card, they scanned it, and they knew that you had their movie, and if you didn't bring back their movie, they're gonna keep charging you these freaking late fees until you fucking bring it back.
What's that werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling, horror, straight ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Until that one time they didn't have late fees, and then that didn't work, and then they went out of business. But this is my brother's card, which was still available on 2006. That Blockbuster is now demolished, but we will always remember you. Okay. 1992 is when this film came out. It has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, 77% based on the audience score, 83% based on the critics. Who really gives a shit? But these are numbers, you know? Numbers are important. The Internet Movie Database gives it a 6.9 out of 10. But this movie's good. Don't let this number stop you from watching the movie. This is the New Line Cinema logo that I just erased. I remember this as a kid because I'd always see it, 100 times to every single commercial trailer. And 2 songs that were stuck in my head as a child were the Twin Peaks theme, because Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me, not in me, was a preview for this film, as well as the song Love or Lust, the instrumental version that begins the movie.
Yeah, that felt kind of nice.
Bill Duke directed this. Bill Duke, also known for his directorial efforts as Sister Act 2, also did Hoodlums. He was in Commando, he was in Predator, as well as X-Men The Last Stand. He was Trask. I don't know if he was Bolivar Trask, because that was Peter Dinklage, but in The Last Stand he was Trask, or whatever the guy that made the Sentinels was, even though The Last Stand didn't really talk about the Sentinels. Anyway, Bill Duke, very accomplished actor and director. I think this is his second movie, maybe his third, not 100% sure. I should know these things because I'm the doctor. But, you know, it's free. What do you expect? It's like PBS, but not nearly as good. Larry Fishburne stars this movie. This is his last movie. He'd be known as Larry. Larry! I think it's also his first starring role. He would also be known as Lawrence going forward. And if you don't know who Lawrence Fishburne is...
Acclaimed for his role in Boys in the Hood, Larry Fishburne is Officer Russell Stevens.
It has Victoria Dillard as the lead female role. I don't know if she's a femme fatale or if she's a mall. She might be the mall. These are film noir terms, so no, she's not the femme fatale. Jeff Goldblum, Clarence Williams III, Gregory Sierra, and Charles Martin Smith round out this very lovely cast of wonderful actors in this wonderful film noir. That's right, I said film noir from 1992. Very different landscape, very different time period, but it is a film noir. It could also be called a neo-noir. I'm going to say noir a lot. Let's go with noir. Also, sadly, just want to give you a quick note, Clarence Williams III had just passed away recently. I think he was 81. He was a wonderful, electrifying actor. Great in almost every single movie he was in. One of my favorite roles he was in was Purple Rain with my hero Prince. It has a very dreamlike structure in this film. The movie begins on Christmas with Lawrence Fishburne and his father. Well, Lawrence Fishburne's a kid, but the kid's playing Lawrence Fishburne. Come on, it's a movie after all. He is sitting in the car. His father does some cocaine. And he asks him what he wants for Christmas, and he doesn't want anything, and he goes into the liquor store, holds it up with a gun right in front of him, while being yelled at by a Santa Claus while he's in the car, and he shows him this money and the gun. He's like, this is how the world works, before the liquor store owner shoots him in the back, and he dies right in his son's arms. So it kind of gives this very, very dark, brooding character of Lawrence Fishburne who we would see grow up. But this is a very film noir-y trope. The character has a very dark past, and because of his father's relation to drugs, guns, violence, alcohol, he never touched a drink, and he didn't do drugs. He became a police officer in Cincinnati, and that takes place 20 years after this. Right, that's a lot of setup, right? So he's being interviewed by Charles Martin Smith, who is a DEA agent, and he wants him to go deep undercover in Los Angeles. So he goes to Los Angeles, so deep undercover, nobody knows he's a cop. He basically becomes a drug dealer working for the Drug Enforcement Agency. Wow, this is kind of odd. And then he buys the drugs, and he usually gives them to the agent. And then after a while, guy can't afford them. He's like, well, what should I do with it? You're a drug dealer. Sell drugs. So basically, he becomes exactly what he always didn't want to become. And he has to work his way up from a low-level enforcer to probably the biggest drug kingpin in Los Angeles.
I knew you'd come.
There's a thin line between catching a criminal and becoming one. Deep Cover. Directed by Bill Duke.
Los Angeles is a city known for its noir. If you've played the video game LA Noire, I mean, there's nothing more noir-y than Los Angeles. I know a lot of people think New York is always going to be the prime central for everything. There are some good New York noir, but Los Angeles, something about it with the space, crime, glitz, glamour, the Hollywood thing. LA Confidential, Blue Dahlia, or is it the Black Dahlia? Black Dahlia. Blue Dahlia is a different movie. It is. These are all just set in Los Angeles, 1940s, 1950s. That is the classic film noir, but this is a 1992 version, updated, and it is phenomenal. Bill Duke masterfully directs this film because there's so many shots where you're just like, damn, man. You know, he had this there's a one cool transition where a guy walks across the screen and he changes the scene with him. So the wipe is the guy walking across the scene. I was like, this is incredible. As I said before, I'd watched this movie a lot as a kid with my brother. Never realized this was actually the first film noir I've ever watched. So watching it years later, I was in a hotel last year and there was all this TV crap with commercials, and I was just like, you know what I want to watch? I want to watch Deep Cover. And then I was putting this whole picture class together, I wanted to do it. I also forgot to mention, I think this is currently on Hulu, even though it's a New Line Cinema project, which means by default it's owned by Warner Brothers, which means by default you would think it would be on HBO Max, but if you're trying to figure out streaming rights, don't even try, you're going to be lost because I don't have a single freaking idea. But like I was saying, Deep Cover. So while he goes throughout the underworld, he comes across Jeff Goldblum, who is in a very villainous role here. He's a lawyer / drug dealer, and Jeff Goldblum gives a very, very good performance here. Him and Lawrence Fishburne really, really have this good dynamic, good dichotomy, and then they start working together. And Clarence Williams III plays a police officer who believes in Mr. Lawrence Fishburne, who is basically acting as a drug dealer, but he spends so much time acting, he starts forgetting that he's actually a police officer. But he can't tell him that he's a cop to get out of some trouble. That's where Jeff Goldblum comes, saves the day, because he's not a snitch. He's so deep undercover, even when he gets pinched on a drug deal, he can't say, well, I'm a cop, let me out. He kind of just does the appropriate thing that a deep undercover agent would do. So I'm going to say Deep Cover a lot. The soundtrack of this movie is fantastic. If you've heard this title before, it is the same as the Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg song. The single became more popular than the movie. The movie wasn't too much of a success. However, in recent years, you know, with everything coming out, and especially now it's in the Criterion Collection, which I guess people will get to re-examine it. I've always thought this is a fantastic movie, and I'm very excited that it's getting a Blu-ray release with a 4K scan. I'm considering buying it, even though I'm out of physical media, just for the interviews with Bill Duke and some critical analysis of it, other than my own, which is clearly all over the place. This is an excellent film noir. It is also one of the most powerful movies I've seen in the 1990s. There's a lot of films in the 1990s that they could have chosen from, but I've actually had a very strong liking to this film ever since I was a kid. I really recommend you give it a shot. It is not at all like other movies from its time. It is very well crafted. Not saying other movies aren't, but it's just something completely different, and it goes for this very classic theme, but very contemporary, and that's what I think works so well about it. Wonderful performances by some very fine actors here, and Lawrence Fishburne basically proves that he could carry a movie because he'd been acting since 1979 at this point, because he was in Apocalypse Now, and he lied about his age. He had been in Apocalypse Now, he'd been in The Color Purple, so he worked with Francis Ford Coppola, he had worked with Steven Spielberg, he had been working for quite a while, waiting for his big break, which, had this movie done a lot better, maybe it could have been a lot more things for Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne now is one of the best supporting actors. He's always in things, but he always gives more than 110%. He's one of my favorite parts of Hannibal. If you haven't watched the TV show, you should check it out. It's very good. Very gory. If it's not your thing, I understand, but phenomenal show. And yeah, so much I'm saying here. I'm too hyped up. I think I've run out of things to talk about. So give us a like if you like this. Subscribe, please. I need some subscribers. Push this algorithm. Let more people see this wonderful content. Wonderful mind. Anyway, I've been Julian. This has been Quality Attempted. This has been Picture Class. This has been a lot of things. This has been the end of a very long rant. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay tuned for next week. We're doing something a little different. I know I say that every single week, but this time is very different. I hope you'll like where I'm going to go with this. So, this has been Picture Class. Welcome to Picture Class. This is episode 6. I'm the doctor, Mr. Julian, and this is Quality Attempted's Picture Class. Please give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a share, and that's about all the pitching I'm going to do until the end of the episode. Yay! We're going to cover the 1890s to 1920s in a quicker fashion than, watching all these things. Well, not watching. We're gonna have some fun. And let's go. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Did you see that? Oh, I did the wrong way. Let's try this again. 1, 2, 3. Woo! I did it on the second time. I'm good, right? So, cinema was born December 28th, 1895, because it was the first time moving images were projected for a paying audience. My French film teacher said he hates dates, he doesn't care about dates, but he made sure that we knew that date. Very important. French film often is coinciding with the beginning of film. They actually claim that the first film actually was in 1888. I saw this on Wikipedia. Don't know how accurate it is, but when I was doing some refresher. I'm not doing all this homework based on Wikipedia, I swear. So the Lumieres, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, believed in the cinema, and they were kind of the pioneers. One of their first films in 1895, I believe, was workers leaving the Lumiere factory. So it's basically a factory, one steady shot like this. It started very humbly, just people walking around, and then, hey, this looks pretty good. Why is this important? Because this is the foundation of what we watch today. Visual art. Started with visual and then they added sound later. So there was a whole 40 years almost of just silent films. So then we have one of our first people who's very important, Mr. George Méliès. If you haven't heard or ever seen the image of a moon with a black eye, A Trip to the Moon from 1902 is where you're going to have to go. And if you're just like, I don't know if I can watch silent movies, at least watch Hugo, directed by Martin Scorsese from 2011, which covers George Méliès' career, in 3D nonetheless. But it talks about how he made hundreds of movies, and these were the days. He built sets before it was kind of a thing. He built all out. They hand-colored each single frame to make the moving pictures in color. So I think that's pretty cool. Alice Guy, our first women filmmaker, showed up in 1896 with The Fairy of the Cabbages. She also remade this film 2 more times, I believe, so if you look up the version, it might be the version from 1900. But Alice Guy made a lot of films, and she was very influential, very early pioneer. So Lumiere's, George Méliès, and Alice Guy, 3 people you'd want to look up to know about the beginning of film. Those are the big names, so you search them, YouTube, see some of these films. They're not going to be exciting. You're not going to be like, this is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that beats the Avengers every single time. But it's nice to know where cinema started. And if you just want anything from this specific episode, at least you know these fun little facts. So 1890s, 1900s. Another reason I decided to go a little more broad for this episode is some silent movies could be 3 to 4 to 5 hours. I'm not going to make you watch Abel Gance's Napoleon, which is one of the only movies ever shot in, no, not one of the only movie shot in polyvision. It means it was 3 full-screen images all at the same time at the end, because I think it was a movie like this, so it was like full screen, and then the other 2 curtains rose, and then it was 1 red, 1 white, and blue, or I'm not exactly sure, it's a French flag at the second, I'm sorry. I'm a little wired right now. I'm really excited about this class, So we get onto the 1910s and 1920s. So for this, I'm going to focus on the big 3 in terms of the comedians, or I would say the visual gag actors. This would be Mr. Charles Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd. Of course, everyone knows Charlie Chaplin because, he had the little tramp mustache, and he can't do that nearly as well. But if you'd like to check out a film, The Rink from the 1910s, his tramp character developed, and then eventually he became one of the biggest of all, probably is the biggest of those 3 stars, and one of the most recognizable. I believe he once lost in a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest. I think he came in 2nd, so he actually dressed up and went to the contest and didn't even win. He did a lot of masterpieces. My favorite would be City Lights from 1931, but we're not covering the 30s this week. So it's kind of hard. He did probably the most earlier on. Buster Keaton teamed up with Fatty Arbuckle, who eventually would become involved in the first big scandal of Hollywood. It was a big sex scandal. Was it Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle? Something like that. And Buster Keaton eventually split with him, and then he became the Great Stone Face. Of the 3, Buster Keaton's probably the most technically interesting because his gags were incredible. He had the one, I think, where the house comes and falls right. He's standing there and the window goes right through him. That is just incredible. I also found out that Jackie Chan was a huge Buster Keaton fan and basically idolized the guy. If you know who Buster Keaton is or seen any of his films, you would agree he has just the technical prowess. It's just amazing, and he has a signature pork pie hat. Another fun fact, if you are a Marvel fan, you probably know that Ant-Man was originally supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright was working on the film since 2005, and before the movie came out, he did cast Paul Rudd as well as write the script, which he is still credited for in combination with other people. However, he could not concede to the changes that Disney wanted to make, so he left. And on the day he left, he posted on his social media a picture of Buster Keaton sitting, I believe, on the movie The Navigator with a Cornetto ice cream. Buster Keaton famously signed a contract with, I think, Warner Brothers, and gave him full control because the studios were taking a little bit more control, and they started casting him in movies which weren't for him, and his career very quickly erased, and he kind of just disappeared almost. But he was in a Charlie Chaplin movie, which was pretty perfect, where they do a really wonderful scene together when Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton are much older. It's really funny. I would say it's the equivalent of Donald Duck and Daffy Duck in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but just with the 2 biggest silent movie stars. Now we have Harold Lloyd here at the bottom. He's the interesting guy from Safety Last. If you've ever seen the guy hanging on the clock, that's the big image. But if you were to pick a movie from the 1920s, I would suggest The Freshman. That was my favorite. When he goes to college, he's just very goofy in that movie, and he's just like, does this dance, and it's just, I don't know, every single time I just can't get it out of my mind. Another fun fact about Harold Lloyd, he may be the first person ever to flip someone off in a film, because in the movie Speedy, he walks past a mirror at a carnival and he just flips himself off. Why does he flip himself off? I don't know. Maybe he's just like, you know what, fuck that guy. So I thought that was kind of cool. So this is just a quick summary of the silent era. Of course, this is nowhere near as much, because this is 40 years. But in those 40 years, they pretty much perfected the filmmaking. They would just take cameras and they put it on everything. Cars. That's why if you watch some of the older silent films, you'll see, wow, they did some really crazy shit. Hell's Angels, which was directed by Howard Hughes. No, was it Howard Hughes or was it Howard Hawks? I think it was Howard Hughes himself. Howard Hughes became the famous recluse billionaire who Iron Man is based off of. Howard Hughes, very famous guy, and he attached all these cameras to airplanes and did an actual dogfight scene. So if you've seen the movie Hell's Angels, which took so long, it was silent, it had part film in color, and it had sound. So it had all three of those things. He was working on the film so much, he was a perfectionist, and a lot of great aviation shots, probably the best ever in film history. Yeah, it happened in the 30s. Also, safety wasn't really as much of a concern at this point. Another fun fact, Ben-Hur had over, I think, 110 cameras for their chariot race scene. Most people talk about the 1955 one, but don't count out the silent films yet. Now, when silent films started coming to an end, mostly because sound was always there in different gimmicks. It was kind of like 3D. They had sword effects, but it never really caught on. When sound came around, it was originally on vinyl. It was a vinyl, and they played it at the same time for the movie The Jazz Singer. One of the things, if you've seen the movie Singing in the Rain, musical from the 1950s, they show some of the issues with it, where if the record skipped, the whole movie would be out of sync. So this proved to be a problem at some point, and then they eventually did sound on film, where it shows the film strip, and then there's actually the audio is on the strip, and then I'm not exactly sure of the technical process. I'm sure if you're out there, someone can explain it much better than I can. But there were color films. They just had to hand paint them. They had 2-strip Technicolor process, and then Disney came out with a 3-strip Technicolor process. They tried sound before. My French film teacher said it's not like they didn't try everything. They literally tried everything in the silent era. And then when they started with sound, they had to relegate backwards. If you watch any movies from the early 1930s, you'll wonder why everything looks so artificial. Well, they started subjecting themselves to studios where they needed to control the sound. So a lot of silent movies might have a more organic feel than the subsequent movies for probably about 20 years. And then the French New Wave kind of changed that, and this is why film history is interesting. You kind of see, oh, well, this is why it was like that. You're talking a lot, Julian. I know. It's a very interesting period that I can summarize very quickly, because it was very interesting to learn about, but at the same time, when it comes to breaking everything down, it might bore most of you to sleep. All 30 viewers I have. Maybe I'm pushing it. Maybe 15. 5? Anyone, please? Anyway, so it's almost that they unlearned everything, and then you slowly see them learning it again. That's why they talk about Citizen Kane being so important. The movie kind of pushed them into a direction, even though a lot of techniques you wouldn't see for another 10 years. And everything was done in the silent era. Everything. So if everyone thinks it's a ripoff, oh, he copied this, everything was copied from the silent era. Just imagine 40 years mastering an art, and then they kind of had to completely change it. So also the movie The Artist. I'm talking really fast, but you know, that's how things work here at Quality Attempted. We throw a lot of facts. Maybe some of them are actually true. But anyway, what I was talking about before with innovation, with the camera, workers leaving the Lumiere factory. Think about this. If you're on Snapchat, or you're on Instagram, or you're on TikTok, or you're on Twitter, and you have all these stories and all this visual images, a lot of times you see these things, right? You know, people doing this. This is the famous shot now. This is almost a 21st century shot. I mean, to someone who's interested in it, it's terrible because it's just like, hey, I'm on camera. This is what I need. Even this, what you're seeing right now, I have framed it kind of with some fun stuff in there if you look hard enough for it. But at the same time, it's a static shot. You know, it's not exactly moving, not cuts, nothing really too intriguing, but we have gotten accustomed to that for YouTube videos and social media. So what I would challenge to you or to anyone interested is try to be a little more artistic with your, I mean, I could try the same thing, but I just do visual gags. I'm not that funny. I'm not the creative, sorry. I am hilarious, right? He's not laughing. So what you try to do is try different types of storytelling with the different things. So you have 15 seconds sometimes in Snapchat, or you have, you know, about a minute in Instagram. And sometimes what I like to do is I'll do a static image, maybe a series of letters, or it's like 1, 2, 3. Think of it almost as a comic strip, and each thing is its own frame. It's its own little canvas that you could paint it upon. Just like film was for the Lumieres, and they just had all these ideas exploding. But so many things now are just filters and people trying to do it. A lot of people just pretending to take their clothes off, or that line thing they jump in and out, or filters to make them look younger, which is very cool. It is nice that they have these technologies, but don't forget, you hold the camera in your hand. You hold the paintbrush that could paint a masterpiece. Will everyone care about it? Probably not. But at least you'll have fun. And if you can make movies on your phone, which was the dream of almost anyone who has ever made a film ever, then I think there's a lot of hope for a lot of great stories out there, because that means anyone could do it with a little budget. And this is kind of the thing that filmmakers want, is they want to see ideas, they want to see short films, and then they get better, then people make more, and they make more big budget, and they change the world. This is why the cinema is intended for paying audience. That's that always artistic and the creative artisticness and the business side of it. That's why we're always going to see a lot of sequels and stuff, because it still is a business, but they need that guaranteed money. Doesn't mean there's going to be less small films, but in the movie theaters there might be. So if you ever are interested in a movie that's not a big franchise or an IP, and you think you want to see it, might not be a bad idea to actually pay the few dollars, $10, $15, and go see it and support the local artists. As well as anyone who has a phone and ever had a dream to do a little movie, you too can be an artist. Not nearly as terrible as me, because remember that quality is attempted here. But I just wanted to try something a little bit different, a little different thing for this. It might have been a complete failure. Trust me, we're going to go back to normal next week. We're going to go right into the future with the 2000s. So that decade, 2000, that decade will be our next thing. I just wanted to cover this. I think it was okay. You let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever seen any silent movies? Is there any silent movies you want to see? Always, you can hit us up on qualityattempted@gmail.com if you have any suggestions. Like our you don't like Instagram, that's Facebook. Follow our Instagram. Come on, we need some followers. Do I have to dance? Do I have to like promise something? At 50 subscribers, I'll do something even stupider than I usually do. I'll try to do a handstand, I'll do cartwheels. What do you want? Come on. Welcome to Picture Class. We have made it to episode 7. Do you believe that? 7. Just like the movie, but we're not doing the movie. We're doing Pan's Labyrinth today. It has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes based on the critics, 91% based on the audience scores, 8.2 on the Internet Movie Database. It stars Ivana Banquero, I probably fucked that name up, Maribel Verdú, Sergei Lopez, and of course the Silver Surfer himself, Doug Jones. It is Guillermo del Toro's 6th directed film, as well as his 3rd Spanish language film. He had previously done Chronos in '93, Mimic in '98, Devil's Backbone in 2001, which I'll get more to in a second, Blade 2 in 2002, and Hellboy 2004, which brings us to, I didn't write the year, but 2006's Pan's Labyrinth. It has 3 Oscar wins for production design, cinematography, hair and makeup design as well. Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite directors to talk about film. If you've never seen an interview with him, just watch and listen. He is just amazing to listen to. He has a separate man cave house, which he calls the Bleak House, which he has a lot of artistic things. Every book he's ever bought or read. He also has a lot of different sculptures, and each item in that house means the same. It means a great deal to him. He also happens to be a huge fan of Phantom of the Paradise, which we covered here in episode 4, and he even did a 2-hour interview with Paul Williams on the DVD, the British DVD, which I think they ported over to the Scream Factory. So it was Arrow in the UK, Scream Factory here. If you don't know what that means, you're not a DVD nerd, so be happy about that. Former DVD nerd here. But anyway, Guillermo del Toro is very passionate about film, and he's very similar to Martin Scorsese in terms of his knowledge, but he also talks a lot about movies that maybe people don't, maybe the higher art film people don't talk about. He's very big onto the monster movies, very big on kaiju films. He did Pacific Rim, can we not forget. He knows film inside and out, and he is one of the most passionate filmmakers there is. And one of my favorite quotes is, someone said, "So with your more personal films like Pan's Labyrinth, how is it going to Hellboy 2?" Or something along those lines. And he said, "Every single film I make is personal."
In a dark time, when hope was bleak, there lived a young girl whose only escape was in a legend that wanted her back.
So this film is very fantasy oriented. It is another attempt, it's a companion film to The Devil's Backbone, which came out in 2001. This film takes place in 1944, 5 years after the Spanish Civil War had ended. The Devil's Backbone takes place during 1939, the final year of the Spanish Civil War. And both films take place at the beginning and the end of World War II, at least, take place during the course of World War II. So it's Spain's point of view in World War II. Devil's Backbone is a young boy's tale, and Pan's Labyrinth is a young girl's tale. So they have this very symbiotic relationship, and they're both excellent movies. You just don't hear about Devil's Backbone as much because I don't think it won any Oscars, or maybe it was nominated. It didn't seem to have as much fanfare, and people usually talk about it when you get further into Guillermo's work. This is usually the one, along with The Shape of Water. But I believe that they're both very equally good. Just Pan's Labyrinth has, I guess, that more fantasy-like, where Devil's Backbone is more of a ghost story, but they both have brutal images of war along with childlike fantasy elements. So in both movies, you'll see that war is currently present. In The Devil's Backbone, there's a bomb in the orphanarium. It had fallen out of the sky and is there the whole movie. It just never went off. But it's a constant reminder of what is outside the orphanage. I've been watching too much Futurama. And in Pan's Labyrinth, you think, when you see the trailers or stuff, you'll see a lot of fantasy elements, a lot of fun, fairies, but it is dark. Do not think this is a light movie. This movie is rated R, and it deserves it.
The legend speaks of the lost soul of a princess from another world who will one day be reborn. There will be signs that mark her return. There will be secrets that reveal her destiny. There will be a journey that will make you believe.
There's some very brutal killings in here by the captain, who is Ophelia's stepfather, and she has basically come here with her mother for the captain he wants his son to be born where his father is. So the main character, Ophelia, her mother got remarried to the captain of this fascist regime. And he is one of the most brutal characters you'll probably ever see in film. He's very specific, time-based, and very methodical in every single move, and he is quite scary when he's on screen. Kills a guy with the bottom of a bottle right in his face. It is very, very graphic, and you see a lot of Guillermo's touches in here because he has an obsession with clocks and mechanical things like perfection. If you see one thing of Guillermo del Toro talking, I would suggest watching his Man Cave bonus feature. I think it's on YouTube, should be still. He did it for the Criterion Collection, but he had basically a whole man cave house dedicated to all the pieces that he has collected, read, and he believes in this idea of surrounding the artist with images that stimulate and all that. So Guillermo del Toro personally is one of my favorite people just because of his beliefs. He has hundreds and thousands of DVDs, books, anything that can stimulate an artist. He believes in surrounding the artist with images as they come up with these new things. So I know I'm going to harp on that a lot, but if you watch that, you'll get a very good sense of what he likes. This movie features some very beautiful CGI. I said beautiful CGI. I said it because there's an underworld, and then it's got an Alice in Wonderland feel to it, but of course a little darker edge, and she's not in Wonderland the whole time. She will have to go back and forth in between doing tasks to prove herself to be the long-lost princess of this underworld and dealing with the brutal, harsh realities of being in a wartime setting, especially with the very brutal stepfather that she has, who is, upon her first meeting, does not give her any love or empathy. It's hard, but it is a very, very powerful movie, and it just shows you how a child's imaginations can get them through anything.
And the imagination of Guillermo del Toro. In darkness, there can be light. In misery, there can be beauty. In death, there can be life.
This is not a kid's movie, but this is it's a young girl's tale, and I'm sure, you know, as you get older, you really connect with your childhood in a lot of different ways, but you know, you'll probably wear rose-colored glasses or forget about it, and when you get older or more mature, you kind of see these things that you may have not noticed the first time around. It's a part of life, I guess, but Guillermo made this very, very personal film, and not saying his other films are personal, just like he said. I put up hashtag Hellboy 3 because I really want it. Hellboy 2 has perhaps my favorite Seth MacFarlane performance of all time. Yes, Seth MacFarlane is incredible in that movie. But Guillermo del Toro is someone I always preach to people who may not, probably one of my my favorite modern filmmaker that, in terms of his passion, just in terms of passionate, because, you know, I'm also a huge Wes Anderson fan, so I could talk all day about him as well, in terms of people making current movies, you know, as of today, and their filmography is a little more recent versus, you know, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. But Guillermo del Toro continues to push the envelope. A lot of his ideas, unfortunately, don't always happen. He was supposed to direct The Hobbit, and he had been working on it for 2 years, and then eventually he left. As soon as Peter Jackson signed his name, the movie was greenlit. So if Guillermo del Toro had done The Hobbit, I would expect a much different movie than we got. I'm not saying it would have been better, but it would have been very, very different. Guillermo del Toro had been trying to make The Mountains of Madness and The Mouth of Madness. Oh my God, the author's name is escaping me. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. He's been trying to do this for years and years. I believe he's had support from James Cameron, and a lot of people want him to make this film. Unfortunately, the budget's not always there. And Guillermo is just so much love and passion in this guy. And if you see any of his films, you can see that. And he also uses monsters, digital effects. He uses it so very well that it never seems cheap or hokey. And then it's just his imagination and his eyes guide you into like his beautiful worlds. So I'd have to say Pan's Labyrinth might be a better looking film in terms of just pretty visuals than Devil's Backbone, and I really can't recommend it enough. It is in Spanish. I recommend, if you do see movies that aren't in English, to see it in its original language with the subtitles, because sometimes dubbing, you kind of just get that effect of it looks weird, the lips don't sync, and it just kind of takes you out of it. I know a lot of people will watch a movie spoken in English with subtitles on, so I'm not really sure if you can handle that, but I'm gonna ask you, if you're gonna watch this movie, to please give it a try. So with that being said, this is Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
We are going to cover Let's Make a Dream, also known as Faisons un Rêve. I can't speak French, I really want to. So we did a Spanish language film made by a Mexican filmmaker, and next we will do a French film made by a French filmmaker. This will be our film from the 1930s. So after this we will have 3 more films from the 1950s, 2010s, and the 2020s. So we will go back and forth between that. After these 3 films, up to you if you want to see more. We're going to do requests. I already have 1 request, so after that, up to you guys. If you'd like to put a request, qualityattempted@gmail.com. Email in blue, Instagram in pink. Huh? It's like I'm a genius. I'm not a genius. This also is on, it says it's on Prime through Mubi. If you want, you could get a free Mubi subscription just to see the film. It leaves in a few days, or I'm not exactly sure when this will post, but it will be leaving shortly. This is one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's very meta. It's based off a play. Sacha Guitry is just hilarious. If you could think of someone talks almost faster than I am talking right now in the 1930s while breaking the fourth wall. So think of a sex comedy, Deadpool style, 1936. If that doesn't make you want to watch the movie, I don't know what on earth you'd want to watch. I mean, come on, this guy is hilarious. So give us a like if you like this video. Give us a subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. You're back! I'm back! Welcome back! It's Picture Class, episode 8! Isn't this great? I made a little line there. Now, I'm gonna ask you for a little bit of your time. Our film today is Let's Make a Dream from 1936, also known as Faisons un Rêve. I don't speak French, but I did go to France once. It was kind of fun. 7.1 on the Internet Movie Database. It has no rating on Rotten Tomatoes since not enough critics have seen it or even reviewed it. It's not even talked about. This film is now available through Arrow on DVD and Blu-ray, I believe, through a 4-pack from Sacha Guitry. It is also available on the iTunes Store, and I think it's available on Prime for a rental. It was on Mubi. It was so long since I've done reviews, it's probably not available on any streaming service currently other than rentals. This film has a interesting story. Sacha Guitry was a very witty playwright. In fact, this is his quote: "When a man steals your wife, there is no better revenge than to let him have her." Sacha Guitry was very theatrical. He was very humorous. He was very big into the stage, loved comedies. He had done everything. And when film came around, his wife, Jacqueline Delubac, who is also in this film, suggested that he do films of his stage adaptations. He didn't really think much of it, and because of this, we now have this film. This play was adapted numerous times over the years. I think they still do it in France, actually. It's very well known, but outside of France, Sacha Guitry is not very well known. They did a box set 10 years ago, I think. It was called Presenting Sasha Guitry. Like the Criterion Collection discovered him. Those pretentious people. I'm kidding, I love them. But in my French film class, my teacher, who was not as big of a fan, showed us the film that was not in that set, which it was 8 films he did in about 4 years. 8, that's a lot, of his adaptations. And he chose this one versus the one that Sasha Guitry's probably best known for is The Story of a Cheat. Orson Welles was influenced by that film himself in his second feature film, The Magnificent Ambersons. Why? Because before the movie even starts, Sasha Guitry shows you all the actors, and he's literally talking over it. He's like, I directed this movie, I did this, and this is the 1930s, so they hadn't really done things like this. He was changing expectations. He's like those people of pretending to read, you know, he was commenting on the fact that they were acting. He also, this film breaks the fourth wall a lot because he looks at the camera because this is based off a play. So in the play, you do talk to the audience sometimes. If it's a little too theatrical for you, then I apologize. It is very short. It's about 1 hour and 19 minutes. I remember we saw this in class, and I think I was the one that loved it the most. I was just obsessed with this movie. I had a crappy copy of it for years, and now it's on HD, it's digital. You don't even need discs anymore. What a world, am I right? Okay. Also features in the opening scene, which they added to give the film a little bit more length. It's a dance, it's like a party, a socialite party. It has Simon, I don't know. I know who he is, I just don't know how to say his name. He's been in Port of Shadows, the one by Jean Vigo. Jean Vigo did Zero D Conduct. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you know nothing about French film. But the history of film starts in France, if we remember from episode 6. So Michel Simon was in plenty of very important films, and he was teamed up again with Sasha Guitry in the 50s to do La Poison. Also Marcel Carnet in Port of Shadows. He was a very good actor, and just a very brief scene of him in here, but it's also very cool to note that he is in this film. The premise of this movie is he invites his friend over and his wife, knowing that his friend has to be somewhere at 4 o'clock, so he invites him over at 3:45 under the pretense he's hiding in the bathroom, and he knew the friend would leave, so he could profess his love to Jacqueline de Lebac, who is his actual wife, and he's hoping she'd come over that night. So the major meat of the film is in the middle part where he is waiting for her to come, and he basically just has this 20-minute monologue, which is just the whole movie. It's just the best part of the movie, and he's just talking, and he's having conversations with himself. He's imagining her come, and he's thinking of all the things that can happen. He's like, oh, she's gonna come here, she's gonna come, stuff. And he's almost writing her coming to him. Eventually, he calls her because she's not coming, and then he keeps getting the phone lines crossed, and he's getting pissed off. He's exaggerating. He's like, I've been on the line for 2 hours, it was half hour. And then he's just talking to her, and eventually she just stops talking. Then you see no one's holding the phone, and then she sneaks in the room, and as he is pretending to kiss her, she kisses him, and there you go. This is also made in France in the 1930s, so it is not subject to the Hays Code. The Hays Code was made in, I think, 1931, but it wasn't really enacted until 1934. That's why if you see movies, they'll call them pre-code, or sometimes pre-code classics. Some of these movies aren't really that good. They just have lots of sexual undertones, and you're like, they did this in the 30s? Yes, they didn't always have the beds separated. They had whole movies were about the sex. They got so tired of sex, the Breen office was like, we had enough, no more. And then writers got very clever of how to get around sex and talking about it, that they would just fade with that, you know, Hollywood kiss that we talked about before. But this one, they kiss and then they fade to the next day, and then they're sitting in their robes. So obviously some coitus had taken place. And then they wake up the next morning to find they slept all night. Oh no, she didn't go home. So then he's in trouble. He's like, oh God, what are we gonna do? And then the doorbell rings. Oh no, it's the husband. The husband comes in. Oh, what's gonna happen? What's he gonna say? He's like, I didn't go home last night. He's like, what? So then he has to talk to Mr. Guitry about an excuse to come up for his wife that he didn't go home because he was cheating on her while she was cheating with him. So it's a very fun movie about, you know, love, infidelity, if you would call it. In this class that I took it, I watched the other two films that were not part of this Arrow box set, part of the Criterion set. So it was Desiree and Quadrille. Yeah, you're not expected to know this, but I came up with the Infidelity Trilogy. I wrote a paper on the Infidelity Trilogy because all three starred Sacha Guitry as well as his wife Jacqueline de Lebac. And the first one was Desiree, where he was a butler, and she was a high society lady, and they kind of tease that there's something going to happen, but it never happens. So it's just like, all right, so it's just a seduction. It's a tease of it happening. And Let's Make a Dream is the middle part of our trilogy, where they actually do the deed, but that's it. They're just cheating. You know, you don't know marriage. They kind of just, I don't know. At the end of the movie, he sends them off somewhere for 2 days. And she's like, how much time? He's like, we got more than forever. We have 2 days. So who knows if the relationship ever lasted. They did not. They were divorced at some point. Not really point of the program that we're talking about. Next would be Quadrille, which was the third of this Infidelity Trilogy, where they actually wind up getting married at the end. So they do a swap places. It's the two couples, and then, like, you know, they kind of swap. And if you've known anything before, like I was saying about the 1930s films, that one felt more like it, because in the 1930s everyone was either rushed to get married or get divorced, because there was just no sex. It was just, no, you're married or you're not. That's how it was in film. It was just a no-no. So the Hays Code, pre-code film. So if you see films pre-1931, whole different ballgame. There's only about 4 years of sound films in there. So, you know, some things are a little suggestive. The original Maltese Falcon, the first one, not the third one that everyone knows, the first one. That one features, I think, a woman in a bathtub, which was a no-no, so they later redid the movie. Even though the redo was a little bit better, wasn't as accurate. Let's Make a Dream. This film has always been something I like to show people, just to give them a sense of my sense of humor, specifically the scene of him just monologuing to himself, just sitting in there and just imagining the girl coming to his house. This is something, it's very writery, it's very actory, it's very theatrical. So Sacha Guitry was a writer, director, actor, as I pretend to be sometimes. Not really all that wonderful. But I want to go for something a little more comical, because I think the next three films may not be as comedic, might go into different tones. So I want to bring another comedy into the mix. It's also a film that you probably won't hear too many people talk about elsewhere. I said too many, I didn't say it's the only place to see it. Quality Attempted, come on, like us, share us from us. Do something! Okay, so anyway, that is 1936. So we have 3 decades after this. We have the 1950s, the 2010s, and 2020s. We have just a few weeks to go for picture class. So if you have any recommendations, qualityattempted@gmail.com. I will be happy to get to that as soon as I am done with the next 3 films, and we shall see where we go from there. Give us a like if you like this. Give us a share if you think somebody might think this jerk is funny. This one. Thanks for coming back, y'all. Yeah. All right. Good evening and welcome back to Picture Class. This is episode 9, aka the episode we call Drive. And if I look a little bit different today, please do not adjust the picture on your set. This is all part of the program. Our 2010's film is 2011's Drive, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. It has a 7.8 on the Internet Movie Database. It also has 93% on Rotten Tomatoes based on critics. However, 15% less, and you get the audience scores. Audiences may expect this to be a non-stop action film, but this, however, is an art house action film, meaning it is very style over substance, much like a lot of action films, but it is very stylistic with its composure, its shots, and even its pacing.
If I drive for you, you give me a time and a place. I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes, and I'm yours, no matter what. I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
It stars Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Christina Hendricks, Ron Perlman, Bryan Cranston, Oscar Isaac, and Albert Brooks. You might remember Ryan Gosling, of course. You might remember him from Crazy Stupid Love, or the other Nicholas Winding Refn movie, Only God Forgives, where he plays a guy named Julian. Carey Mulligan, she's been in a lot of films, hasn't she? Always with that sad face, but I really like her as an actress. She also appeared in Wall Street 2, Money Never Sleeps, even though it's just Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. Christina Hendricks, the director's wife. Ron Perlman, we all know who he is. Hellboy 2, played Slade of the Teen Titans. Bryan Cranston, he's Walter White, and of course, the guy in the first Godzilla movie. Oscar Isaac, he's Poe Dameron, he's Apocalypse. He's everywhere, isn't he? He really is. And of course, Albert Brooks, who we all know best from his work on Broadcast News, The Muse, all of his work on The Simpsons, and can we not forget, of course, the hilarity of the film Taxi Driver, a film with no humor. Then there's Albert Brooks. This film is a neo-noir, so it takes place in the classic noir city of Los Angeles. Much like most noir films, they're very dreamlike. Sunset Boulevard, Maltese Falcon, Deep Cover, they all have this very secluded from reality type feel. You'll see glimpses of reality, but you often don't see too many normal scenes with people and large groups of people. Often it's mainly secluded and it's kind of a story, and it's almost like a side quest, if you would think of it as a video game or maybe a life story. It's just this character happens to go down this road, it's a dark path, and maybe they'll never come back. It is a neon noir, so this is very 2010s with the techno 80s influence. The soundtrack by Cliff Martinez, who did the score as well as songs by Kavinsky, Love Fox, Real Hero, which was College, and Electric Youth, I believe, as well as other great songs. It currently is on Peacock for free, unless I misread. I'm not sure how a lot of these streaming services. This is a Sony-owned film to too many other different distributors, but I believe Peacock currently has it for free. So what is this movie about? This movie is about a boy in his car and he meets a girl. Kind of, pretty much, that's it. No, Ryan Gosling is a Hollywood stunt driver who moonlights as a getaway driver for fun. He gets his cut, he has rules. If you've seen the movie The Transporter, it's very similar but a little more grounded in reality. And when I say grounded in reality, it's that hyper-realism. Hyper-realism being, it's grounded in reality, but a lot of artificiality in it. There's some scenes where lighting completely changes, dims. There's a scene where they kiss, and the light goes up, the light goes down. You know this is not actually happening. And there's contrasted with this brutal reality with the violence in this movie. So it starts out very slow, and then it goes in for the kill like a gut punch. This film is very brutal, it's fantastic, and once it starts going, it takes a while to get there. It does not stop. This film was also the first part of Nicholas Winding Refn's Neon trilogy. He started with 2011 in Drive. He continued, I believe, in 2013 with Only God Forgives, where he played me. Just kidding. And then he finished it off in 2016, I believe, or 17, with The Neon Demon, which was Elle Fanning. This was an Amazon movie, and it was something else about a model in LA. So they all have this very dark, these dark characters with reality, and they also have neon is very, very influential. I mean, neon in The Neon Demon. This movie is all neon, and as well as Drive. But what is neon? Neon is light. Light to dark. Neon noir. It's kind of a nice, interesting composition. Or should I say contrast? Contrast to what we usually expect out of our films, is everything is well lit. This is lit in an unusual way. So, that being said, we're going to do a little bit nicer and keep it short this week. because we all know you got things to do and people to see. Give us a like if you liked what you just saw. Give us a subscribe if you want to see more content. Hit that bell for subscription notifications. I'm just copying what other people say. Some point maybe somebody will listen. I've been Julian, and until next week when we cover the 1950s, I hope you have a very pleasant week. Good afternoon and welcome back to Picture Class. This is our 10th episode. (2021's) The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. This is his fourth superhero film after Super 2010, Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2 from 2014 and 2017. So he is no stranger to the genre of the superheroes. We have this famous marketing creative title of The to demonstrate that it is the second film to differentiate it from the first film from 2016, simply called Suicide Squad. We don't want to have a mix-up like The Fast and the Furious and Fast and Furious, as well as The Final Destination and Final Destination. Yes, those are 4 different movies I just said there. This very creative The, which has been all the rage in Hollywood in the recent years.
Yeah.
Film is very funny, very R-rated. We have some cool characters such as the Polka Dot Man. We have John Cena as the Peacemaker, who's getting his own TV series. Viola Davis comes back with a fury in this movie. I love how she was written in this movie, so much better than the previous one. Joel Kinnaman returns as Rick Flag, and we have Sylvester Stallone, of course, being King Shark, who is just one of the most fun characters James Gunn has came up with yet.
Nom nom.
Any questions?
And
Yes, that is your hand. Very good.
we're all gonna die.
What I really like about this movie is its sense of humor. James Gunn had me in 2010 with Super. I thought it was hilarious. And Rainn Wilson stars as a guy who has his wife taken from him and he becomes a superhero. I think I oversimplified it there, but Rob Zombie's in it. I think it's God or something, and he was an octopus. Not really sure if I just messed that up or just made that up. No, this is a real movie. I might have spoiled a little bit, but you should see it. James Gunn has a sick, demented mind from the beautifully messed up mind of James Gunn, as he says in the trailer. He really did a lot with a lot of characters that no one really gives a rat's ass about, and I think that's what James Gunn's strength is. He's that underdog that we all really like. The Guardians of the Galaxy was not really a brand until he made it a brand, and the Suicide Squad could have that same future based on the well-writtenness of it, as well as it's a brand that has already worked. So James Gunn was the perfect person to bring on board for a project like this.
What's the plan?
How the hell am I supposed to know?
You're the leader. You're supposed to be decisive.
And I've decided that you should eat a big bag of dicks.
If this whole beach was completely covered in dicks, and somebody said I'd eat every dick until the beach was clean for liberty, I would say no problemo.
Why would someone put penises all over the beach?
Who knows why madmen do what they do?
This is a film completely part of the IP generation. The IP generation is what I believe is the filmmaking that has probably taken over post-MCU, maybe mid-2012s onwards, where it's got to be an intellectual property in order to get a film version of it. Something like that. It's kind of like a more part of a chain of films. Not saying that they're bad, but they're completely there as part of a marketing of something else. And all the studios want in on this right now. This seems to be what the hot topic is. Universal wanted to do this a few years ago with their Dark Universe. Could have been a pretty good idea. King Kong and Godzilla are having a kaiju universe. Not a bad idea. The DC Extended Universe, which no one really knows because the fate of the company. Warner was purchased by AT&T, and all these different things happened the last few years. There was a point where 20th Century Fox was about to buy Warner Brothers, and one of the things that they said to help, their business and company grow would be this DC Extended Universe, which years later we have seen is not exactly everything they hoped it would be. It's a good example of when the idea doesn't work as well as it does, and there's the creative minds and the financial people. And Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut came out earlier this year, which was a special edition director's cut of a 2017 film, which no one really liked, but everyone saw. So this basically gave a reason to watch HBO Max, right? So that's a way of drawing in content. And The Suicide Squad's a brand new film intended for the theaters. So now we're in this IP generation of being swarmed with content. This movie is directly related to a movie that just came out, which is an alternate universe, but there's so much explaining in regards to a lot of the IP movies, I'd have to say. It's not like you can watch one or two. It's like, are you part of our IP? Are you part of the DC universe? Are you part of the Harry Potter universe? So if you know you've seen all the Ada movies and you've read the books and you've seen the plays, have you seen, the comics and the TV shows, Arrow? So it's not just movies. The IP generation is, movies are part of something bigger. You know what I'm saying? Not everything has a movie tie-in. Usually movies will have TV show tie-ins or cartoon tie-ins, comic book tie-ins. Now it's kind of the movie's a tie-in for something else, which is no problem. This is just a different generation of filmmaking. And it's kind of like the Westerns were around for 30, 40 years and now they're kind of gone. Superhero genre has been lasting a while, so it might be a trajectory going into a different way after a while of thinking, maybe in the post-2020s. So we're still at the beginning of this decade. I don't know if this is a representation of what's going forward or this is a representation of the culmination of, all these superhero movies. We've had the Avengers, we've had the ultimate battle of 25 movies, we have, can it keep going or is people going to start losing interest and they're kind of going to fizzle out? Monster movies lasted a good 30, 40 years, the slasher genre. Is the superhero genre dying? Is it part of this IP generation that's going to slowly go different? Because it's not limited to superheroes this generation. This generation's book releases with, Harry Potter's. So our current trajectory is kind of unsure. This film is like a weird apex, I feel, because it was very, very well made and it didn't really do too well, but it's a success based on its box office numbers, even though we know about the current situation. So who knows where film's going to go from here, but I at least want to try to cover something from the 2020s, and I found it's appropriate and it's relevant for once, I try. So give this a like if you like us, share us with somebody who might care. Of course, there are way better reviews out there than this one, and hopefully next week will be our third attempt at doing the 1950s. I'm stuck between two movies. Maybe I'll do them both. We'll end the picture class with a double feature. It's not a bad idea, actually. No, I'm not going to do it one movie. Hi! Welcome to Picture Class, episode 11. We finally made it to the 1950s, and we will be covering 1955's film noir, Kiss Me Deadly. This film came out in 1955, produced and directed by Robert Aldridge. It has a 7.6 on the Internet Movie Database. It has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes by critics, 84%, oof, that's low, based on the audience scores. It is based off a book of the same name by Mickey Spillane, who actually did not really like this movie because it's a very loose adaptation of his book. We'll get more to that in a minute. It stars Ralph Meeker, Albert Decker, Paul Stewart, Maxine Cooper, and Gabby Rogers. It was on this Copper Commission's 1955 #1 menace to youth today was this film. It was very controversial at its time. It is also in the National Film Registry. It's not written on here, but it is. This is a 1950s film noir. Me personally, I'm more into the 1940s film noir, but this is a huge exception, and we're going to get into all of that in a very quick fashion. I've said numerous times on our film noir from Notorious, I've talked about neo-noir in terms of deep cover, neon-noir in terms of drive, and now we get to probably one of the best, brutal, out-there noirs there is, Kiss Me Deadly. The film begins very interestingly because we see a girl in a trench coat wearing nothing else, walking in the middle of the night, waving down cars for help. She finally just jumps in front of one of the cars, swerves, and the guy is almost pissed off, She gets in the car, you hear on the radio the new song by Nat King Cole, and then we go right into the credits. Over the credits, we just hear her crying. And usually when you see credit crawls or title crawls, it's down, up, right? It comes from the bottom and it goes up, and then you read accordingly. This comes from the top down, and you're reading it almost backwards. Or if you're like driving on the street, you know, it's like stop ahead. Something like that. It's a very different perspective, and it's all about changing your expectations. They're driving, and then you finally learn a lot about Mike Hammer as a very selfish individual. He's very all about himself and his car. He drives a Jaguar, and he is driving this woman who had escaped from a mental institution to a bus stop. As they're driving to the bus stop, she says, "If I don't make it, remember me." He's like, "Why wouldn't you make it?" Boom, get cut off by a car. All we see is feet. Villain has wingtips. You have to remember that. Next thing you know, we see her being tortured from the legs down, and you just see all you do is hear. You see, you don't get to see what's happening, you hear it. You see Mike Hammer kind of confused. He's knocked out. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. Next thing you know, they place the bodies, Mike Hammer's and the woman's, in the Jaguar and row it off a mountain, and it crashes. Somehow he does not die, and he wakes up to his secretary, who plays a very big role in this movie. His secretary is madly in love with him, if you cannot tell, very obvious, and she also assists him in a lot of his endeavors. He is a adulterer investigator, pretty much. He does a lot of dirty pictures. Not very well-liked guy. He's kind of a sleazeball. And he has a relationship with the police, obviously, because he works with them in tandem. And at the beginning of the movie, because of him being him, they take away his gun and his license to prevent him from going after this case that he is on. Him being stubborn, he decides to go full force anyway. Mike Hammer in this movie is one of the most brutal, nasty, narcissistic characters probably ever. But specifically in film noir, he's not a flawed hero. He is just a brutish bastard. He beats the living shit out of people with no remorse, and sometimes he has a big smirk on his face when he does it. He's a big bully, and he doesn't really care. He's a womanizer. You see him kiss at least 6 different women, and it's almost comical, because every time there's a woman, he's just going to kiss her, and you're like, okay. And you think, well, they let this kind of movie happen in the 1950s? This is also an independent film, so a lot of it is on location. Films during this point were still much relegated to the studio, so this is a very big welcome change. You see some incredible shots, including that opening drive with Mike Hammer and the woman crying in the Jaguar. The camera is on the back of the car. You don't usually see that in this time period. It would usually be a rear projection with a, stock car. It's not real and it's kind of hollowed out. But this movie has so much life into it, and every single character is important. A lot of times film noir, like we discussed in Notorious or Deep Cover, it kind of seems almost disconnected with reality. This one has a little more in touch with reality because there are so many characters. He meets a lot of people, and they all are rich, very fully developed supporting actors, characters, because the actors make it so well. When you see any character comes on the screen, you remember them, you like them, and you're just like, wow, they're very rich. It's a very rich world. There's no one just like, I forgot them as soon as they left the screen. You're just like, damn, what the heck kind of movie is this? Also, we see the 1950s answer to an answering machine, which is just freaking awesome if you ask me. And you see a lot of this detective stuff with a 1950s Cold War fear. There is a lot of mention of the MacGuffin. They don't really ever say what it is, but it is basically akin to the Manhattan Project that they never actually specify, but they say something like that. And at the end of the movie, when the secret suitcase is opened and there's a big glow on her face, if you've seen the movie Pulp Fiction, you'll kind of see where Quentin Tarantino got his influence from. Robert Aldrich was a very big pioneer of the independent cinema in terms of a lot of his works. He helped influence the French New Wave. French New Wave helped influence a lot of subsequent films, including New Hollywood, yada, yada, yada. So this movie here kind of is just a very offbeat film from the 1950s. You're just like, what? It's kind of cool how the 1950s had this, Night of the Hunter, which I was originally going to do, as well as Sweet Smell of Success. These films are so important, and they almost transcend like their decade, because it's like they were probably amongst the most remembered films, but at the time we're just like, this is different. There's something very raw and humane. This movie feels very lived in. This world feels lived in. This is Los Angeles, and it is so beautifully shot. There's shot after shot. You just really enjoy the black and white photography, as well as being the 1950s, widescreen was available. So this is a widescreen film noir, even though film noir is a style, but it would just be a crime film. And you get this brutish character, you have very loose women, which you don't really see in this time period so much as obvious as you do in here. And it's also the violence, sometimes you see it, it's just the way it's shot. You'll see a guy comes up to him, you don't even see what he does, but he knocks the guy the hell out. All right, so Mike Hammer doesn't take any shit. He's the well-dressed, very, very full of himself, but he knows how to handle himself. And it's a very unique take on this character who Mickey Spillane eventually played the character Mike Hammer. The character he created, he played him in a movie, The Girl Hunters, I believe in the 1960s, which was decent, a little bit forgettable. But this movie is absolutely incredible. It's not available on any streaming. I highly, highly recommend this film because it is probably one of my favorite film noir, maybe one of my favorite films. I don't know, every time I watch it, I'm like, why the hell has it been so long since I watched it? So, fulfilling our promise from episode 1 to do the 1950s, we've made it 10 episodes later to the 1950s, and we have subsequently covered all decades, even though we kind of cheated in the silent episode. So from henceforth, we're going to try to do something different. If you have any suggestions, please email me at qualityattempted@gmail.com. Join us in our Quality Attempted universe. Who the hell knows what that means? Go for it. Give us a follow on Instagram. Who knows? Maybe you'll find something you'll like. Next week will be our first suggestion fan of the show. Fan of the show, Christian. We will be covering Back to the Future. I wasn't sure if he meant the first movie or the whole trilogy, so we're just going to be nice and do the whole damn trilogy. So,
whoa, this is heavy.
Give us a like if you like this. Subscribe. It helps with that algorithm, and it can push this content to more people, and more of this crap could be out there. It could be equivalent with that other crap that you watch. It's just a bunch of crap. Come on, huh? I can't believe it. We're fucking down in the game. What are you guys doing? What the fuck are you doing? Are you sleeping out there? And you look like a fish out of water. Come on, guys. We gotta talk about the plan today. We're gonna talk about sports. Shit. Wrong video. We're gonna be talking about Huey Lewis, but not sports. Today on Picture Class, Back to the Future, the entire trilogy. That's as much as Thomas F. Wilson I'm going to do. Keep pedaling, you two! Okay, I'm done. We are doing the Back to the Future trilogy today. 1, 2, and 3. On the IMDb scores in order, we had 8.5, 7.8, and 7.4 respectively. For the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, we have 96%, 66%, why is it so low? And then 80%. And then the audience scores are 94%, 85%, and 78% respectively. So oddly enough, critics and audiences don't agree which one's better, 2 or 3. Back to the Future starred Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Thomas F. Wilson. They were in all 3 movies. This movie trilogy is basically recasting and almost ifs. Eric Stoltz was originally cast to play Marty McFly because they were unable to get Michael J. Fox because the producers of Family Ties would not let him alter his schedule at all. Eric Stoltz was working for about 3 to 4 weeks, but they said it was darker, he lacked the charm of Marty McFly, what the character they wanted. He's a phenomenal actor. He was in Mask, not The Mask, Mask, as well as Some Kind of Wonderful, which is essentially Pretty in Pink, but gender swapped. And it was made a year after Pretty in Pink by the same director and the same writer, but with a better ending, in my opinion. We also had Claudia Wells in the first one, and then she was recast in the second and third one as Jennifer Parker, who is Marty McFly's girlfriend. She plays a much bigger role in the first one, I think. Well, not bigger, but more important. I feel she's kind of just there. Nothing against Elizabeth Shue, but they kind of just really wrote her out. Story-wise, it's kind of stupid. She's probably in the whole trilogy for like, what, 10 minutes? But I really did like Claudia Wells. I felt she had more of an edge to her, and she seemed kind of cool, like a really cool girlfriend for Marty, even though they're both the same character, but the way she portrayed the character. I really would have liked to see more of her, either Elizabeth Shue or Claudia Wells, but timing didn't happen, so the actress was replaced. So the end of the first movie and the beginning of the second movie, which have the same exact scene, have two different actors. There's also a lot of footage with Eric Stoltz, but none of it's made available out of respect for Eric Stoltz. That's what the producers said, because they did have to fire him. Crispin Glover, who was George McFly in the first one, refused to come back for the second one, originally stating money issues, but in reality, that was more, what he said anyway, is he felt morally wrong about the ending, because in the first one, Marty McFly's family is kind of boring. They don't really like each other. It's almost like they're there, but they shouldn't be. It's almost like really depressing, almost toxic. And by the end of the first one, since he goes back in time and helps his dad basically win his mom versus the way he originally met his mom, he got his confidence and it changed his entire life. And as a result, he's more successful. And for some reason, Marty wanted this Jeep in his original timeline, and now he basically has a Jeep at the end of the first movie. So they kind of fuck with the timeline all over the place, and it gets weird. So he goes back in time, has to reunite his parents since he changed time by going back, and his mom's now in love with him. And he's like, oh God. And his mom really wants to just, she seems like a very, old-fashioned woman, but when he meets her, she is just a horny teenager. So he has to avoid her and help his dad get with his mom. So we go to the second one where he now has to go to the future to change the future. The plot makes very little sense, but it's fun because you see 2015 and Marty wants to basically go back and make some money. So he buys a sports almanac from 1950 to 2000 with all the betting, all the results, which is a tiny little book, which is not very realistic. Robert Zemeckis directed all three, I forgot to mention that. Yay, he also helped write along with Bob Gale. Just putting that out there. So we go further in, and now old Biff overhears them in 2015, and then he goes back, he steals a time machine while they're going to help, just watch the movie. And then when they go back in time to 1985, everything's different, and there's a casino, everything is kind of scummy. It's almost like a completely different town. It's overrun by bikers, and there's a giant casino hotel in the middle of it. Who Biff is now this orange-haired multi-millionaire who's based off somebody in actuality.
Donald Trump.
So then they had to find out when Biff gave it to Biff in the past, because he basically bet on every single sporting thing, and he made the money. Right, nice. So they have to go back to the exact day. The exact day that they went was 1955, the story of the first one. So he has to go back now and make sure everything that happened that he had just done while trying to get the book back from Biff. So Biff is the antagonist of the first two, no matter what age he is at. If it's 1955, 1985, 2015. I'd like to think if they did a show now, Biff would be like misunderstood. They need like a Cobra Kai type show for Biff. I was not a bad guy. They, since there are really no more really bad villains, everyone's just misunderstood or just pissed off about something. There's a little more depth to villains now, I would say. But that's just an idea. If someone wants to make a Biff Cobra Kai show, you let me know. We'll write it together. qualityattempted@gmail.com. Come on, let's make something. So then by the end of the second one, he has to make sure he goes back in time to avoid, since two Martys are now in the past where he shouldn't be, yada yada yada. While they're about to go back to 1985. They finish their mission. Doc gets hit by a lightning bolt and goes back to 1885 because plot. So at the end of the second one, he sends him back to the future. The scene from the first one, and then the second Marty comes out, and then he has to go back to the past. The third one is a Western, and they have to deal with Biff's like great-grandfather, Buford Tannen. And of course, the time machine lost the gas, and then there's a love story. Lots of different shit. It is very complex, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what I love about these movies is they're a lot of fun. I've seen the second one a lot as a kid. It is very, it's a very feel-good movie. This is very pop culture. This is Star Wars. It's part of the Americana film, and it's also back when trilogies were a little more sacred. A little more, at least blockbuster ones. So there's Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Back to the Future. Anytime you said 10 trilogy, like a top 10 list of trilogies, those are on everyone's. Now there's so many fucking trilogies, but there are no more trilogies because now they're making 4s, 5s, and 6. Back to the Future is one of the few trilogies that has stayed a trilogy. And when I was in screenwriting class years ago, someone said they're thinking about remaking Back to the Future with Justin Bieber. This was 2011, as Marty McFly. My screenwriter's professor said, you know, this country used to mean something. That's all I'll have to say. I thought the comment was quite hilarious. Clearly it never happened, and the producers will not let it be remade as long as I think they have the rights to it. They had 2 seasons of an animated series, which was okay. It takes place after the 3rd one, and you're like, okay, it's back when every big movie had an animated series. Was it always good? No. But I'm going to put the bat down. We're going to put the bat down, all right? We're going to put the bat down. It had a very interesting rendition of Back in Time by Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis did The Power of Love and Back in Time, so he's very connected with the movies, hence the sports reference before. Yeah. Clever. But one of the great things about these movies, especially the 3rd one, is Robert Zemeckis is a huge film buff. It has Pat Buttram. He has this very distinct voice. He's been in animated movies and John Ford movies. So it's a very Western thing to have him in the Western movie. He was in, I can't do his voice very well, but he was in Robin Hood as the Sheriff of Nottingham. He was in The Fox and the Hound. He was in Rugrats, Goofy movie. He was in all these things. Just look him up and I can't do it. I can't do it. It says his voice was stuck in puberty. I can't do it. It's terrible. But the trilogy has similar situations in all 3, such as Marty waking up to his mom in all 3 movies in different time periods. So that's a fun trope. This is heavy. Great Scott. They have their big phrases. And this is a huge influence, if not the major influence, on Rick and Morty. So everyone, check out Back to the Future to see what it was originally based on. I've seen the trilogy a few times. The first time I saw it was in 2003 as 1. I had seen 2 so many times as a kid. 2 was a movie I grew up with. I can quote it every day. But 2 is very convoluted and complicated, but that's what I think the charm is. 3 is a Western, which can turn some people off because they're so used to the futuristic version of 2 or the 1950 version of 1. But they all cohese in this nice time travel thing. You see the same actors play the same characters. So that's kind of cool, and you get to think, because parents always look identical to their kids, whether or not, that's another famous film trope. Ooh, which we all love and we just accept because they're like, are we really going to cast someone else? So it's kind of fun to see the same characters act in 3 different time periods in 3 different situations. It also, what's funny is the movies, like, throughout the movies, Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown's like, well, I'm not doing the time machine, I'm doing it to research. And then he wants to keep destroying the time machine. He says it a few times, and it actually does eventually get destroyed. And then at the end of the 3rd one, he comes with a train time machine. He has kids. Him and Mary Steenburgen get together. I don't know if I said it before. She was also in Time After Time from 1979, which is Jack the Ripper versus H.G. Wells. I am not kidding. Jack the Ripper goes to H.G. Wells' party, steals his time machine, and goes to the future. And then H.G. Wells goes to the future. He falls in love with Mary Steenburgen and then goes back in time with her. This one, Mary Steenburgen, goes forward in time with Doc Brown. So she plays a very similar character. It's kind of fun. But 1979, Time After Time. It's a very interesting one. Malcolm McDowell, David Warner. That's it. That's it for the plug. I just don't think anyone knows what it's called because it wouldn't be called Jack the Ripper versus H.G. Wells. It's called Time After Time. You know, could you imagine what that would be today? That would be like Godzilla versus Kong. Jack the Ripper, H.G. You know, but marketing was a little more subtle back then. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a trilogy which you can watch without really needing to see any more. The animated series is not required, and the 2015 short is not required. The Ride, which is a bonus feature on the DVD and Blu-ray, which was a big staple at Universal Studios. When I was a kid, Universal Studios was all about the movie rides. I haven't been there in so long, but they had Back to the Future, E.T., Jaws, King Kong. So it was kind of that. You rode the movies, at least the one in Florida. And I always liked the Ride because I love the DeLorean. I grew up loving that car. And I could have bought it sometime when I was in high school when it was worth nothing. And then this whole nostalgia crap came in. Now it's like 30, 40. And I'm like, no, not at all. But it has a very big special place in my heart. This, especially the second one, which always feels like I'm going back to my childhood when I watch it. Going back. It's a wonderful movie, wonderful movies. And the first one, I think, is the best of the three. It's the movie that has the most plot, it has the most heart, and it's like a little movie. Since it was 19 million, budget-wise and the stunts and everything, it was smaller in comparison, but it was a really good idea, and then you kind of see it become more Hollywood, because that's how it works. If you make a movie with no money, suddenly the second one has to cost more, as if sequels putting more money into it will guarantee more money. That's a 22 Jump Street joke. One of my favorite sequels because it just tells you all about sequel humor. So, I've been the Doctor, Mr. Julian. This has been Quality Attempted. If you have any recommendations, if you'd like to see me talk more blah 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 about other movies, please, qualityattempted@gmail.com. Give us a follow on Instagram. If you're into podcasts about other things and some of my other crappy work, please give us a follow on Amazon, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We do stuff very frequently, and by we, I mean me. But thank you so much for tuning in this week. I'm not sure where we're going to go next week, so fill in my mailbox with suggestions, and let's see where we go from here. God, that was a lot of talking. Hello and welcome to Picture Class. My name is Julian, the poetaster rhyme master, and today we're going to be talking about Caru Beto. Who is this man? It's the man on this shirt. This shirt was worn by Jeff Bridges in 3 films. Cold Feet from 1989, The Fisher King from 1991, and The Big Lebowski from 1998. We'll be discussing the latter two today on Picture Class. Our first film is from 1991. It is directed by Terry Gilliam, who is one of the Monty Pythons. He's the only American one without an American citizenship. Yes, that is a true story. It stars Jeff Bridges, Robin Williams, in an Oscar-winning role, Mercedes Raoul, Amanda Plummer, Michael Jeter, as well as David Hyde Pierce from Frasier fame. The story is of a shock jock, similar to what you would think of Doc Imus or Howard Sturm, or is it Don Imus? That sound right? And it is about New York City shock jock who is on top of the world. He's ready to have a new sitcom, and he has this kind of berates and belittles his callers, and one of them gives him a call frequently, and he's just like, oh God. And he's talking about this very swanky joint where all these elite people of New York go, and he's kind of jealous, and he basically goes in and shoots up the place. As a result, Jeff Bridges' career is officially over, and we flash forward 3 years into the future. Jeff Bridges is now working in a video store with his girlfriend, Mercedes Raoul, who is just incredible. He has become an alcoholic, and seeing his life go down the toilet, he decides to kill himself by tying cement blocks to his feet and jumping in a river. However, before he has the chance, he is accosted by 2 men coming out of a Jeep who attempt to beat the crap out of him and then set him on fire because they assume he is homeless. This actually was a thing. He is saved by Robin Williams, Parry, who rescues him in a very knightly fashion with garbage cans, and he has a sword, or not sword, but he basically uses his wits, and it's pretty incredible. He takes him back to his boiler room, or his home, and he kind of tells him of his goal to procure the Holy Grail, kind of like the story of the Fisher King itself, which is an Arthurian tale. So it's a 1991 New York City story of the Fisher King. Jeff Bridges kind of is thankful, but he decides to say, yeah, no thank you, and as he's leaving, he is noticed leaving the boiler room by the superintendent. The superintendent informs him that he lets him stay there because he feels bad for him due to his wife's murder. His wife and him were at the club that was shot up 3 years prior. So Jeff Bridges has a sense of obligation towards Robin Williams, and he attempts to try to do something to make him feel better. Robin Williams, his character Perry is not who he was in his previous life. He is completely blocked that out. He was catatonic for a few years, bounced around, and no one was there to take care of him, so he kind of has become someone entirely different. This is Robin Williams' absolute best performance I've ever seen him in. It is incredible. Some of the scenes I'd like to talk to you about of my favorites would be Jeff Bridges' character Jack goes to an elaborate ruse to help set up Perry with this girl that he is in love with, obsessed with, whichever word you decide. And at the end of the date, they have probably one of the best scenes I've ever seen Robin Williams in, ever. It's very, very, very sweet movie, but it's also pretty graphic. There are some scenes of extreme violence in this movie, and it is pretty frightening, actually. I don't really recommend these scenes for the people who are pretty weak at heart. However, if you are strong enough to make it through these scenes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel for this movie. But Terry Gilliam tackles so many things head on. The other scenes that I really like would be this Grand Central Station scene, and you have this very elaborate dance number, and everyone's going because Perry has noticed Amanda Plummer's character walking through, and it's very opulent, grand. It's probably the most Terry Gilliam scene in the entire movie. Terry Gilliam did Time Bandits, Brazil, Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Very, very big fantasy-like films. Often, none of them are usually contemporary, so this is a very different movie for him. He also didn't write it, so he's just directing it in this case. But he knows how to direct it very well. It blends very brutal reality with high fantasy. So you'll see a red night, you'll see very, 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 very powerful imagery, especially when they actually show the scene in the club. It is very brutal. There's a video store scene when before they even get them to meet, to try to get Amanda Plummer and Robin Williams to meet. They're going through the section looking through videotapes, and since it's a Sony Columbia TriStar picture, you'll see all the tapes in the entire place are Columbia TriStar. Fun fact. Also, there's a beautiful scene with Tom Waits, who plays a homeless person, and he's holding a I Love New York cup, and some guy throws money, misses, and Jeff Bridges is like, asshole, and then he's like, Tom Waits says, they pay not to look at us. So this movie talks about homeless people, and it treats them like people. It's a very humane movie because it's a very different side of New York, I guess. They show similar to The Lower Depths. It's incredibly powerful, and there's just so many great scenes, and to see Jeff Bridges give such a good performance. It's outshined by Robin Williams and Mercedes Raoul, but doesn't mean Jeff Bridges doesn't give it his A game. He comes off as super cocky, and then he's really humbled, and I really, really like that about this film. One scene that really sticks in my head is Michael Jeter plays a burlesque dancer, out-of-work burlesque dancer. He's now homeless, and when they're in the hospital, he's cradling Michael Jeter, Jeff Bridges at this point is very uncomfortable with all these characters, but it's a very human moment where they're just talking. There's no sexuality in it. He's literally just holding him like a baby. And Michael Jeter's telling how he lost all of his friends. This is also talking about AIDS, because AIDS in New York, especially in the 1980s, this is 1991, he saw all of his friends disappear, and covers so many different topics. There is a lot of humor in this movie, but it covers a lot of very serious grounds, and I could say it's probably one of the most moving films. Of all the films in picture class, if there was one I would tell you to watch, I would highly recommend this one. It's about redemption, it's about second chances, it's about change, it's about love, it's about starting again, it's about making a difference. And it deals with trauma, mental illness, very, very seriously, but it also has fun with it in terms of a movie. It does a lot of things in the movie. It's a roller coaster. You feel a lot of different emotions, and some of the more powerful scenes, if you can make them through them, I tell you, it is worth the price of admission. It covers all the bases. I cry almost every time I watch this movie. Not every time. I cry multiple times. There's a lot of scenes that really, really get to me. I just wanted to finish with, it's got a 7.5 on the Internet Movie Database, as well as an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. So check out 1991's Terry Gilliam's The Fisher King. Man, moving on to the second film, we have 1998's The Big Lebowski. Stars Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi, John Turturro, Tara Reid, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Sam Elliott. Came out in 1998, like I said. It was written and directed by the Coen brothers. 8.1 on the Internet Movie Database, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. The story of this movie, Jeffrey Lebowski basically comes home, played by Jeff Bridges, and is accosted by two men who assume that he has money, and he is clearly not a man of means. After they kind of trash his department, one of the men urinates on his rug before they realize it was not the right Jeffrey Lebowski. The Big Lebowski, which is the other Jeffrey Lebowski, is in fact responsible for owing these men money. Jeff Bridges plays the dude, because he never says he's like, no one calls me Jeffrey Lebowski, you're Mr. Lebowski, I'm the dude. This is very loosely based on Raymond Chandler. Raymond Chandler wrote a series of books starring Philip Marlowe in the 1930s as well as the 40s. If you watch Murder My Sweet from 1944 or The Big Sleep from 1946, you put those together and contemporize it and make it completely crazy, you have The Big Lebowski. If you think the film, wow, this makes no sense. Well, if you've ever watched The Big Sleep, which is one of the highest rated movies, a lot of critics don't know what the hell's going on. It's very noir in that way. It's not noir, it's very Raymond Chandler. It's very convoluted and complex to the point where you don't even know why the hell anything was done, but you enjoy the characters, you enjoy the setting, and you enjoy whatever kind of story and craziness that happens. One of the main reasons I think a lot of people didn't like True Detective Season 2 is it's more like this. If I was to say the first two seasons, True Detective Season 1 was very much like Seven, directed by David Fincher, and Season 2 would probably be more like in the line of this type of noir. But we're not talking about True Detective, we're here to talk about Big Lebowski, which I dub as a comedy film noir because it is very, very respective of the type of genre. But it doesn't go overboard with voiceovers, and it doesn't play up noir cliches. It just happens to be a noir. There's a lot of wonderful dream sequences in here, including songs by Kenny Rogers and, of course, Bob Dylan. If you've seen How I Met Your Mother, the scene with Marshall flying with a moo-moo throughout, New York City, you kind of get where they are inspired by Jeff Lebowski flying around L.A. The other thing that makes it very noir, of course, it's in L.A., City of Angels. Some of my favorite scenes in this movie would be John Goodman trying to intimidate a 15-year-old by smashing up a Corvette that they assume he bought. And the line, "This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass," repeated over and over by John Goodman, is just comic gold. Now, if you watch the TV censored version, "This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps," doesn't really have the same effects. Another one of my favorite scenes is when Jesus, played by John Turturro, walks up to him and says, "Liam and me, we're going to fuck you up." And Jeff Bridges giving one of the best line readings of all time. Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. I don't know how you can beat that. If anyone insults you, you just lay back and say that. You're good. Fuck you, I hate you. It's just your opinion, dude. And then there's too much to talk about, but it's not a movie that you can explain without watching it. You can try to explain it, it's all over the place, but the movie's basically, the man gets his rug peed on and he wants to get a new one, and he gets caught in a tale of kidnapping, extortion, bribery, thefts, pornography. It's just a lot of incredible stuff. of the two films, after you watch The Fisher King, this is a lot lighter to watch, so it kind of leaves you on a little bit of a higher note. There's not as much danger in this movie. It's all quite comical. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is even in here, so you know it has to be good, right? Because he's only in good movies. He was in Back to the Future 2 and 3, so it's a consistency. Should we just keep doing Flea movies? How about that? No? Anybody? Do we cover the Wild Thornberrys next? Yeah, he was Donnie. I hope you liked this this different version of Picture Class. I want to try something a little bit different. Let me know if you like this in the comments. What's your favorite Jeff Bridges movie? What's your favorite I forgot his name. God, I need to do more research. Do you like this format, or do you prefer me standing up yelling at a board? Let me know in the comments. QualityAttempted@gmail.com. Do you have any double features you'd like to do? Share this with your friends who like the movies. Maybe you want to talk about something other than movies. But that would be a different show then, wouldn't it? I've been Julian. You've been wonderful. I'll see you next time.